Okay, you should be live.
Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the work session for Monday, February 26th. Call, is Mr. McDaniel on that?
Yes, Mr. McDaniel will be attending remotely from home due to a medical condition.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll take roll. Mr. McDaniel,
Here.
Mr. Lyons,
Here.
Mr. Day,
Here.
and Mr. Lewis, would he be on there as well?
I've not heard.
Okay. And the chair is here. All righty. Mr. Harrison.
You able to get shared?
Yes, yeah, we tested it. It's Madam Chair and Honorable Supervisors, before you is the first draft of the FY25 budget, which begins July 1 of 2024. Both on the website for today's meeting and also a printed copy for you as a summary. I'd like to go over the draft budget highlights first, and then go into any more details that the board would like to see. The Finance Committee has already set a couple of meeting dates, including this Friday. I just want to emphasize that, and all of you have gone through the process before. This is the very first draft. The current draft of the budget gap is a negative $876,125. Total revenue is $58,695,262.
58 million.
58 million.
Just
58,695,262. Of that, $2,107,715 is assigned reserves from capital reserves and the restricted reserves from EMS recovery fees. So this is $1,941,701 higher than fiscal year 24. Total expenses amount to $59,571,387, and that's $2,817,826 higher than FY24. This amount includes $1,893,475 for capital projects. Again, that's proposed to be paid from assigned capital reserves. I just want an important note. We have not received the school division's proposed budget as a date of this memo. So the numbers that are in this draft budget are placeholder FY24 numbers. Of course, we have the meeting with the school board this Thursday evening, but I suspect it'll be much like it was last year. We'll get some feedback on what the governor's budget is, what's the House version, and what the Senate's version. But I think the school provides us as much data as when they get it. But at least it should give us an indication anyhow where things are headed after Thursday. For This draft budget, the proposed real estate remains unchanged at 61 cents. The overall property valuation is mostly flat. Personal property tax rate remains unchanged at $4.25 for vehicles, $4.50 for other personal property, and $2.55 for machinery and tools. Now, the personal property tax revenue is down $381,875 due to declining vehicle values. The sales and lodging tax are mostly flat, especially lodging taxes. Sales tax is up a little bit, but meals taxes is, and when we get into the revenue, we'll talk about that, is estimated quite a bit higher than the current fiscal year based on this year's trends. Looking at the expenditures, health insurance, we're looking at, and this is preliminary, the One Digital, the county's consultant for healthcare, they're confident that it won't exceed 14.60% increase. Likely it will go down. So that's just a preliminary number.
Do they know when we'll have a?
Yeah, I believe
number?
they will have, I think as of today, I think they were trying to set up a meeting with the personnel committee with Mr. Suter and Ms. Holt.
Yes, we got some, we're getting some information on the family plan. Got a little bit of that today. Just got it about 30 minutes before the meeting. I've sketched some rough numbers on there. I'm not really prepared to share that yet.
No, it'll be sooner than.
It'll be sooner than last year's.
Us.
Looking at your the main driver for expenses, capital expenses are $975,541 more than the current year. And again, that's I want to emphasize this will come out of our assigned reserves, but it does have to show in the budget. The 2016A courthouse refinance bond was retired in this current fiscal year, but the 2020C refinance bond interest payment beginning in FY25. The bond payment for the Raphine property is included. A 2% raise was provided to all constitutional officers and their employees on December 1st, 2024. And that full year cost is included in FY25. And there are significant increases to external agencies' budgets, including mandated services like the State Health Department and contractual services like the SPCA, but also significant increases in the discretionary donations to nonprofits.
Not to interrupt, the courthouse, how many years do we have on that refinance bond?
Through FY 2038.
And what's the yearly payment?
The yearly payments starting
For
that's before
FY25, yeah.
oh, did I not share that? I did not share that. Is the total is $1,244,512. And that's roughly what it'll be through FY36, and then it drops off in 37 and 38. So when we're looking at the total expenses over FY24, we're looking at currently a $2,817,826 increase. About 12% of that is debt payments at $340,886 more. Capital, again, $975,541 more, and different personnel costs of $792,254, about 28%. We're hoping to have the updated comp board numbers. They've been a little bit behind. Ready for the finance committee's meeting this Friday. So that should help offset some of that budget gap. Because we just went with what we could best estimate, but now that we have more firm numbers, we'll be seeing some increased revenue there. This also doesn't include certain expenses that have been requested. That's not in this draft at this point. There's a request for 3 new fire and rescue captains, 2, which will be a new position. It's not 3 additional, it's 3 captains. 2 additional Parks and Rec crew members and a salary adjustment for Parks and Rec staff. I have to say that we haven't received any proposed budget from RARO as of today. So that's, I just went with the FY24 numbers in the budget. And of course, we'll be talking about the Natural Bridge Elementary HVAC project during the regular meeting.
I could add to that just slightly. The 2 additional Parks and Rec crew members, the finance committee asked us to go back and see if they could, what it would look like if it'd be just 1. And the other funding there is not that it would change a little bit, and that's 19,000. And the problem was you're getting compression if you're adding those, so we had to make some changes, but the number's not the 19,000. In other words, if you bring somebody in at the ground level, we had to make a little bit of adjustment there for the 2 or 3 positions above it, above those. And again, the finance committee asked us to look at 1. So Ms. Hoke has come up with some numbers on that. She's discussing those with Wayne Nicely, the department head. Let's see. And again, I just wanted to stress that there are no local raises included in the draft of this budget. So there, the 2% of the comp board is in there. We still don't know what the state's going to do with the comp board. So hopefully, as Ashton says, that we'll get some relief there. Obviously, the schools are not included yet. We don't know the magnitude of that at this point. And not to make matters worse, but we did get a CIP late last week, a capital improvement, the first capital improvement plan from the 911 center. We've kind of been asking for them to do a capital improvement plan so that we can start planning for the future. Don't know if all this would be needed, but they've asked for in the next budget. And again, this is the full amount. It's not, the county would only have a share of this, but a total of $285,000. And this hasn't even gone in front of the finance committee. We just received. So the console furniture, their furniture is and say the console furniture, it's their modular furniture that moves and does all that stuff. It's I think it's at 12 years old, needed $145,000 for that. They've got some UPS battery replacements at $20,000. These are the tower top battery packs that bridge the power. If you have a power outage, it bridges it to when the generator kicks on. So far, we've had no failures. I asked some questions about that in the meeting late last week with them, and they're budgeting to replace some each year moving ahead. So that's one. And then the other one is microwave upgrades to certain components of the microwave system. So it's a total of 285 there. While I'm on that one, just a quick update to the board. We also, the 911 board, as you know, we parted ways with the old CAD vendor that we had. And again, as I reported to the board, we didn't lose any money other than staff time on that. We fully refunded any monies that we'd put into that contract. and had a amicable separation. And so the 911 board and staff have been looking at other CADs and approved a ranking last Thursday. And the ranking, the cost to the county, the upfront cost would be, I don't want to give an exact number, but in the neighborhood of $335,000 to $350,000 for the upfront cost for that CAD system. Now, keeping in mind, we got the other money back. So that'll be some offset to that. I've talked with
Can
Mr.
you- What, how much in an offset?
I think the money, I
Would it
think,
be a complete offset? Or
no, it's not a complete offset because the first one was not all that much money. I believe the number was around $90,000 we got back because we only paid for part of the contract. And we paid for like half the contract and it wasn't a real high cost and it just didn't work out. So we got all that money back. So you'd have the offset. Plus, again, we were anticipating paying the other piece of it anyway. So they're being offset there, but this is the CAD that was ranked number one to enter into negotiations I think it's used in like 34 localities in the state, and it was highly rated according to the staff and user team that went out, and it's just got a higher upfront cost.
And that's a one-time payment. That could come out of reserves. You wouldn't have to.
The 350,000, is that the county share?
Yes. Yes. That is, again, that's a general number, but we have a three-way share with the cities with a small contribution coming from, it's actually four-way, but a very small contribution. I think through 4%, I think VMI is a partner in that.
Are you sure that the CAD system is going to work? I mean, this is the third or fourth one that we've been through. I don't mind changing to get it right, but let's get it right. I'm tired of continuously changing CAD systems.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was one of the Supervisor McDaniel. That was one of the things that I don't have to tell you. I restated that almost in those exact terms at the meeting on Thursday. So,
Mr. Suter, did you say you inquired about instead of two Parks and Rec positions, one?
yes, sir.
Did you get a reply on that or?
I got a reply and said, well, it's to paraphrase, we'll take whatever help we can get.
Okay.
So, so yes. And again, we had to rework the numbers for that. And yes.
And what about the new captain's positions? Do they all have to come about
At the same time? I did ask that question. That was a question the Finance Committee had. In order to work into a 24-hour shift, essentially what these positions are intended to do is provide a medic 24/7 and also have an emergency manager, officer on call. Well, not on call, they would be on duty 24/7. So one of the biggest things was I didn't have the answer for that exactly at the meeting, but at the Finance Committee meeting, but it's for make sure that we have a medic on staff 24/7.
Right now, we don't.
So yeah, some of the time we do not.
Right. So even if we didn't have it in another year, wouldn't we be better if we had two captains? It wouldn't give us 24/7 all the time, but 24/7 maybe a little more than we currently have.
I'd almost have to have Chief Ramsey here to explain that, but I do know that would be some difficulty in scheduling, and you'd have to figure out when you were and when you weren't.
Right. I understand it wouldn't be perfect, but it's got to be better. Even if we only have one new captain, it would be one more person than we currently have, and it would have to be at least a little bit better. But I'll leave that to the fire and safety group. But
Okay.
Well, and we do have our the board's public safety committee sitting here, so they've received the same presentation I have, and I do think that getting into further discussions, it may be that Chief Ramsey would be needed to explain that
Absolutely.
in much more detail than I
Unless
can.
you guys want to chip in.
Well,
now.
no, I, for the
Alright.
same reason.
I do
Spencer.
know that right now, the chief and the deputy chief are alternating weeks. So they're working daylight during the week, but they're also coming out all hours of the night, answering calls plus weekends. And I wasn't aware of that till just within the last couple of months, but it's been quite a burden on them. Of course, getting to the point is.
I would hate for these gentlemen to, the only way they could not do this is to retire, retire early. That wouldn't be a good for us.
Well, and I've noted that I don't know if you want to make a decision of that magnitude based on what may or may not happen with the retirement or whatever,
Well, I
but
just, it's too much.
right. And they are very, very good at what they do.
Yeah, I just like to hear how the three people are going to make a difference.
Some of it's going to do with the change in state law over the drug boxes.
That is a good point.
They were able to fill them at the hospital when they run the calls in. Now that's not going to be available. We've got to start tracking and supplying our drug boxes.
One thing I understood though is that we are also going to get reimbursed for those drug boxes. So initially it's an expense, but we might get some reimbursement because we're actually now billing for the drugs instead of the hospital billing for the drugs, is what I understood.
That's what I understood too. Again, I think Chief Ramsey would be best suited to answer that, but I think it's more from
Responsible
Supervisor Day.
person.
Hmm.
I thought it was more of needed a responsible person, like
Well-
a captain to be able to manage.
And that's the Supervisor Day was saying it's not as much about the reimbursement cost. It's about being able to have management of those boxes.
And the revenues that are generated by responding to calls, is that going up? Do we have, and where is that? Can any of that be used towards these positions initially?
That hadn't been discussed yet. I think it's what asking you about 1.7, 1.8.
Yeah, I'll bring that up.
In the meantime, just to make you aware, I did have a conversation with Chief Ramsey today. I had a question come up from another county about how we deal with soft billing here. And I asked him to take a look at that. And he said it was ironic because he was talking with our billing company actually just today about the potential to come back. The last time that the board increased that amount, that is a trickle down from Medicare. You kind of set your billing rate on what Medicare bills, and if Medicare goes up, you need to kind of move up. You're kind of leaving money on the table. So that is something that you may be seeing soon. Last time we did it, I think, was 2019.
You mean an increase in the
Yes.
soft billing? Okay.
Mr. Lyons, we're looking at $75,000 increase in the EMS recovery fees.
And is that just from our paid squad?
That's overall.
That's overall.
Overall for everyone across the county.
We're anticipating total $450,000.
So some of that goes out to the volunteers if they make.
Yes,
There are various-
and
There's a
and
list
Mr.
of things.
Yes, in Chief Ramsey's memo, he breaks out the percentages that go and where the money currently goes.
For example, a decision was made some years ago that $100,000 annually goes into the cost for staffing. The cost for the medical director comes out of that. The cost that we pay the percentage for the billing company to collect those funds comes out of that. So there's certain things that come out of that money, and the rest of it goes into it's a building fund.
When Chief Ramsey comes to present it, it would probably be good for him to have some agency numbers. I mean, if we're seeing increased calls because certain agencies are not able to get out, then perhaps we should offset this additional cost that we're looking at for personnel out of their allotment or compensation that we're giving to those individual agencies.
Well, our new policy does allow for that. And we are currently doing that. I think that we have deducted, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, do you know what that number is per every quarter? I think it's close to $4,000, $5,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how much is coming out, but
Right.
you know, in the past, we've always tried to incentivize high response rates.
Right. And this is the first year, I suppose, that it has been hitting the allotment too, Mr. McDaniel. Can you find it there?
So why is that not sharing?
I'm not sure if we're going to be able to.
Well, I guess my point, if we're gonna hire 3 captains so we can have 24/7 coverage, I would think that those captains would respond to any major calls during the period.
Yes, sir.
So if we're providing, then basically we're providing an officer to every call, then that fund might ought to contribute a little bit towards their costs.
Okay.
We can certainly.
I mean, that's just one person's opinion, but I'm not an expert on fire scheduling. But I'd like to hear more about it and make sure we can get them what they need.
Okay. And I will say that a lot of these questions, Chief Ramsey in that department, they put together a very good package that in their budget request. And some of these questions are answered in there, but they might best be answered in context through discussion.
So maybe we can reach out
Expand it on.
and ask if he could attend this Friday's finance committee meeting.
Would that be appropriate?
That would be good.
The jail's budget just came in this afternoon, and their preliminary increase on their operational budget is $32,823 more than FY24, and their estimated capital is a total of $552,796, which is an increase of $308,196, and that's and again, this is a preliminary number that they're going to be working with the jail commission on.
Yes, we've not, jail commission has not reviewed that budget yet, but I asked, I said, we at least need a soft number to get something to plug in. So we got that today. And
You said 32,000 was
On the operating side.
on the operator, only 32.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
and again, we have not, the jail commission finance committee nor the jail board has reviewed that yet. So we need, it could change.
And as a reminder,
Go with it.
Well, I never make promises, but that would not be my goal.
Right.
My goal would be to go the other way.
Right.
Yes.
and just as a reminder, FY27 is when we need to expect to fully fund those 3 SRO deputies that we've hired. We were fortunate this year for the 4th SRO deputy. Well, there's 5 altogether. One's always been county funded. For the Natural Bridge Elementary Dep, we were supposed to fully fund that position in FY24, but they had some leftover funds and encouraged us to apply for it, which the sheriff's office did and did receive the grant. And that's happening again this year. They have a little bit of extra funds, so they asked to apply for that. But those when the grant is supposed to go away, we need a plan on it. And if we happen to get the money, we get the money. If we don't, well, we shouldn't be surprised.
And
Because
that's in
that's
the
what was
sheriff's
expected.
department's budget.
That's correct. The only other really kind of sticker shock, was probably not a surprise, is just some in fuel for police services, but parts have really, really have escalated. And I don't think that might be a surprise to anyone, but um, we are expecting a pretty large increase in. And I actually might even need amended budgets this year um, to keep up with the cost. But yeah, we got time. Um, should I move on to switching on over to revenue? Real property taxes, we're looking at um, an increase of about 266,000. Public service corporations, that's we took a 5-year average of that, and that's been more than anticipated. We don't get the valuations, the Public Service Corporation Commission. We don't get the values until September. So we do our best. So we're always a year behind on trying to estimate what that is, and that's everywhere.
Mhm.
We don't get the values until September 1st. As I mentioned before, personal property taxes, looking at a decrease due to declining vehicle valuations.
We're looking at a decrease, or we had it.
We have a decrease.
Right.
Yes, we have a decrease. Sales tax, we're looking at about a 200,000 increase based on current trends. Meals tax, and you've noticed this from the board reports, that's been doing really well. So we're anticipating about a $600,000 increase over FY24.
And why would you say that is happening? Is people in general, or?
Yeah, based on just looking at where we are year to date, we're as far as it's just been going up, and we're glad. And you've seen that in the board reports.
Mhm.
Sales taxes almost on track or a little bit above track. Lodging taxes flat, but the mills tax has been really doing really well. The next big increase, we're still doing well on the interest on our investments, so this still might be just a little bit on the conservative side, but we're putting in a even $1 million on the FY25 with any. We follow the news. I'm sure Mr. McDaniel follows that as far as you never know what the Fed's going to do. Sometimes it looks like they're going to. Are they going to lower it? Interest rates? Are they going to keep it flat? Now that they're talking about maybe even increasing it again because of different core inflation. But that's still a good number if the interest rates stay relatively flat. And we'll look at that closer. We being the finance committee, because there'll be a couple Federal Reserve meetings before final budgets. You're seeing an increase in on back to fleet services, even though there's a increase in jail costs or no jail costs in parts. We do bill out the anyone not with the county, like the schools. So the schools is having an increase, which
Means an increase in
which
their
will
budget,
affect their
right?
budget
Mhm.
request to the county. But there is some offset there of that. Um, and I appreciate the finance committee, we go through, or they go through it. And we look at, they look at those numbers pretty closely. Sometimes if I'm a little too conservative, we'll
Mhm.
talk about it and get those. But the total local revenue is, we're looking at currently 1.1 million higher than FY24. Moving on to state revenue. Again, hope to have to define it. I hope we're aiming to have those updated comp board figures by this Friday, which you'll see an increase in the amount of reimbursements. So we can start capturing some of those numbers from the 2% raise they gave on December 1st. But that's been a real challenge both for the comp board and also for the constitutional officers. It's just been a real struggle this time. And the sheriff, even more so because we had to figure out both the 2% raise, but they also provided more compression to help alleviate some of the compression. So it's good news for his office, but it takes a number of crunching. And I'll give credit to both this year and for the current FY25 coming up, that the chief deputy, Tony McFadden and Julie in my office sitting down together and really knocking out and getting those numbers has really helped get budget estimates for the sheriff's office. But I do credit those two for that. Federal revenue down just a little bit, but flat. Again, on reserves, as I mentioned before, that 1.9 million, that is from the restricted reserves, the assigned reserves we have for capital.
Sorry, I'm not looking at that. 1.9?
1,893,475.
So maybe 1 million is,
1 point.
well,
That's the full cost of the CIP for FY25.
As it stands now.
As
we've
it
got
stands now.
some- Yeah, we've got,
Thank you.
yeah, we've got some stuff, the jail just recently received that. Yeah, 911 center.
But it's also important to note that we've been, in the past several years, putting money into reserves. So these one-time expenses, we've got the money to cover it in reserves, so it wouldn't make sense to increase taxes when their tax dollars are already been put aside and saved from year to year. And so I think any fixed one-time expense can be covered by reserves and still not hurt the amount we have in reserves.
Yes, as of the ending June, the last fiscal year ending June 30th, our fund balance policy, as you know, we retain a minimum of 20%. We stood at 39.45%, or total of $29,861,632 in unassigned. Right. So when we're talking about like the capital, that's money we have
That
in
came out of
assigned
assigned,
reserves.
so we can afford to take some out of unassigned, but you just don't want to do it for a repeating expense. But if for a one-time expense, it makes sense. If you do it, you can't do it for salaries because then you're in the hole even further as the years progress.
Yes, I do believe we'll be looking at that with the finance committee on some of these additional costs that are coming up from like either the gel and the 911 and stuff like that. Using those. Okay, we still got, oh, just going through this. And I'll let Mr. Lyons speak for the finance committee, but I know they wanted to, on the budget request from external agencies. And when I should mention, when I use the term external agencies, I mean anyone who's not the county, whether that be another state agency like the health department or a local nonprofit. I use external as external, only exception. So I want to be clear on that.
Some of those are contractual as well. We don't have a ton of wiggle room with that. You mentioned the health department. You know, they provide service and they say this is your bill. So.
Right, but the ones that aren't contractual, we haven't touched them yet. So if you have something that's dear to your heart that you don't want us to touch, let us know. Otherwise, everything's up for discussion.
Well, and I think, you know, some of those, like you see with the health department, well, we knew that they told us it was coming, counties and cities a couple of years ago, that they're, at least they're upfront about it. We're going to start making the localities share a greater share of that. So at least they told us up front. But I think that's just, we need to know that ourselves. But also I think that's good for the public to know that more of these mandated costs are being put onto localities. So I'm overall, I know I really appreciate all the hard work also the individual departments put in to their budget. Mr. Suter and I meet with all the departments before he even reaches the first draft, even reaches the finance committee to try to come up with reasonable request to make before even that first draft is seen by the finance committee. So I do appreciate it. And I also appreciate all of our constitutional officers and department heads getting their budgets in on time to me. Mr. Suter, did you have something about the ARPA?
No, we just said, you know, as you know, we've dedicated the biggest chunk of ARPA funds to broadband grants. We are, you know, I hesitate to even say hopeful, but been trying for this the third straight year, trying to get VOTI funds, and the board committed a significant match to this year's 3 applications. 30% match. Thank you for doing that. There's and then there was some other money dedicated to the school division for the doors, school safety, and aside from that, I think we're in the neighborhood of actually we've got 550,000 or something like that
Right.
left. And my thought would be that, for example, CAD, a new CAD that could be a source for those funds.
And we have to have that spent by the end of this calendar year. If it's not spent, it has to be at least obligated, and by obligated, they mean you actually have a contract. It's not just you know, a board saying we're reserving these funds for that, which is the normal term for obligated. Kind of like with the capital funds, the board has said, with the finance committee, setting aside these funds. What they mean by obligated on this is you actually contractual relationship. So we're going to have to use that for
And I'm not sure about the legislation, but I do know, I haven't checked on it recently, but there was some legislation to try to extend that another year. I don't know where they've gotten with it.
But I think, certain things like broadband and the public safety, which we include like the security doors in, those are really clear things that are okay with, because I know with all the trillions of dollars spent, several years from now, they're going to be following up. We want to see copies. They did that with some of the CARES funds down to the level of wanting, like with the PSA, for example, following up on how did, some of them, how the funds were spent, and they wanted to see invoices and as they should. I mean, that's
Yeah,
as they should, but it's going to happen. And usually when you have a real clear thing like broadband, which they were encouraging, and public safety, it's going to put us in a better position when we
Mhm.
account for those funds. Still got 10 minutes. Let me, one of the things, and try not to get too much in the weeds.
Actually, just let me, I would like to stop 5 minutes or so to give everybody a fast break before we start the meeting. So if you don't mind.
Yes. I want to bring up that debt schedule again for the board. One of the things we want to talk with the finance committee about that won't change the total dollar amounts. And we've talked with David Daniels with the school, which we need to talk to management as well. And that would be creating debt service funds, kind of like what we have with the capital funds, so that it's just like we account for capital separately. Yeah, even though like right now we have debt spread across several different departments. We have other debt, and then we got our debt, and then a transfer to schools debt, and then we got all these different, and it's identified. It's very clear in the budget, and in the budget that the public sees, they see a list of all the debt payments. It's just from I think it'd be even one step further to have debt funds like we do with the capital funds, and so the school board and the board of supervisors can see all that in one nice thing, and that's something we want to bring up the finance committee first as doing to help account for that. But if you give me just a second, I want to bring up our debt schedule.
But while he's doing that, in the meantime, I encourage any board members to communicate with their peers on the finance committee on anything. Again, the external agencies, internal agencies. We'll try to get Chief Ramsey. I'm not sure of his schedule. We'll try to get him in the finance committee, the next finance committee meeting, and get some answers to those specific questions. And we'll just continue to look for any way we can to try to close this gap. And keeping in mind too, and the other thing that a lot of times we look to the state and other localities around us as to what kind of cost of living increase to give the staff annually. We'll continue to do that. But again, the number that you're seeing at the top of the page, $876,125, is the gap without those things on the second, on the second page. That's without adding in that whole list at the bottom. So, and the schools. So it's a challenge. Just put it.
We got time to talk about admissions tax real quick.
Oh,
On the agenda.
it's on the agenda. Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Rons. Yeah, we kind of left that unchanged at this point until after this,
Okay.
the regular meeting, to get some better estimates on that emissions tax
Mhm.
based on the discussion the board will have here in a little bit. But here's all of our up on the screen, and you see this in the budget as well. All of our debt payments, more simplified chart, and the school board provides a similar format in their budget request. And again, we have so actually we put it at the beginning of our budget so that it's very clear.
Is that here? I'm trying to see it here. Is it on your, as part of the agenda?
No, I just
Okay.
brought that up.
Oh,
Just
where it's SharePoint.
it will be.
I can't read
Yeah.
any of that
Do
up
it, you
there.
gotta zoom in a little bit.
Yes, sir, it will be.
Sure.
So this is what, and we'll talk with, we need to talk with, it's time for a meeting anyway with Mr. Daniels with the school, and so we can bring something to the finance committee and to school management. Probably go to the executive committee first to maybe do a joint debt service fund. That would make our auditors happy as well, as far as being a good idea.
Right.
So
If you want to take a break.
Excuse me,
I said, if you want to take a break now, probably
I
be a
would.
good.
Gentlemen, would that be all right with you?
thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair and the supervisors for your time.
Thank you
And thank you, Mr.
very
Suter, for all your input.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I just did. I just adjourned. Yep, I will adjourn. Be back in 6 minutes. I would like to call the February 26, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Supervisor McDaniel will be attending remotely from home due to medical condition. I'll now take roll. Mr. McDaniel,
Here.
Mr. Lyons.
Here.
Mr. Day.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Present.
And the chair is here. We will now have a prayer for the board, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Those attending are not required to participate, but if you'd like to join us, please stand.
Dear Lord, we trust you with all our hearts and lean on you, not on our own understanding. We thank you for the opportunity to make a difference in our community. May we be attentive and patient while discussions take place. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will hold citizens' comments near the beginning of the meeting. We will do our best to take citizens' comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join by telephone, you may dial in to one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. Are there any recommended changes to this agenda? We will move on. I'd like to welcome our new county attorney, Mr. Dryden, John Dryden. Please stand, John. He's here with us. And I also want to thank you very much for stepping in and coming to work the day after you were hired to bring you up to speed. Thank you very much, John. We have a resolution honoring Janie Harris's outstanding service on the county's Economic Development Authority. I would like to read that now. Whereas Janie Harris has served with distinction as a member of the Rockbridge County Economic Development Authority since April 2014, consistently demonstrating unwavering commitment and dedication over her 10-year tenure. And whereas Mrs. Harris exhibited exemplary leadership in the esteemed role of Vice Chair from 2017 to 2022 during her service on the Economic Development Authority, and whereas Mrs. Harris's notable 10-year tenure on the EDA significantly contributed to the successful implementation of diverse economic development programs, projects, and initiatives. Her impactful efforts played a pivotal role in facilitating the establishment and expansion of numerous businesses within the county. This includes guiding the expansions of Devil's Backbone Brewing Company's outpost, securing additional funding for the revitalization of the Virginia Horse Center, leading the formation of Natural Bridge State Park, and overseeing the expansion of public utilities to support residential and business growth along Route 60 West. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors extends deep appreciation to Janie Harris for her outstanding service and commendable contributions to the community. Mrs. Harris' dedication as a diligent and effective member of the Rockbridge County Economic Development Authority from April 2014 to January 2024 deserves our highest recognition and gratitude. Adopted this day. Please come up and come up, take a picture.
Go down there.
Great, yeah, right. Change name.
And I'll say we'll get this in a little better format. We can't do it till we get it signed. All right. Say cheese. All right, there we go. Thank you.
You need it.
I do. I was
Second, too.
I was so excited to hug you that I did not finalize this vote. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel. I see him there. Mr. McDaniel, you there?
Yes. Sorry.
And the chair, no problem, the chair votes yes. Thank you so much.
Mr. Day?
I vote yes, thank
Oh, I'll be hearing about this. All righty. Resolution of appreciation to County Attorney Vicki Huffman. This is Vicki's last meeting with us, and we'd like to express our deep appreciation for her service via this resolution.
A resolution expressing the appreciation of the Board of Supervisors of Rockbridge County to Vicki L. Huffman on the occasion of her retirement after 19 years as Rockbridge County's attorney. Whereas Vicki L. Huffman was born and raised in Rockbridge County and graduated from Lexington High School in 1975. And whereas Vicki received her Bachelor of Science degree from James Madison University in 1979, subsequently earned her law degree from Washington and Lee University School of Law in 1985. And whereas after passing the Virginia bar examination, Vicki began her career working in private practice with Sisler and Joyce for 4 years prior to accepting the position of Assistant County Attorney for Roanoke County, where she was promoted to Senior Assistant County Attorney until 2004. And whereas in October of 2004, Vicki was hired as Rockbridge County Attorney and became the county's second full-time county attorney. And whereas Vicki diligently provided the board with excellent legal advice and well-reasoned and communicated recommendations on a myriad of complex public issues and opportunities. And whereas Vicki's advice was instrumental in the successful completion of many projects and initiatives, including, but certainly not limited to, negotiation and construction of the new Rockbridge County Courthouse, reorganization and resurrection of the Virginia Horse Center, critical updates to the Rockbridge County Comprehensive Plan, land development regulations, and county code, creation and implementation of the Rockbridge Area Network Authority, including the Prescott grant application, easement acquisition, and construction contracts, creation of the Natural Bridge State Park, creation of the Blue Ridge Resource Authority, creation and implementation of the Maury Express, the region's first public transportation system, the creation of tourism zones for business incentives, the South River Flood Mitigation Project, renegotiation of many interjudicial agreements with the cities of Lexington and Buena Vista, and implementation of the county's first career fire and EMS service. And whereas, in addition to the Board of Supervisors, Vicki served as legal counsel in various capacities for many boards, commissions, and authorities of Rockbridge County, including the Solid Waste Authority, the Industrial Development Authority, the Economic Development Authority, the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the local Building Code Board of Appeals, the Tourism Corridor Overlay District Board, the Rockbridge Area Network Authority, the Public Service Authority, and the Board of Equalization. And whereas Vicki's detailed work on many performance agreements, economic development negotiation, and public utility projects, including extension of the public water and sewer to the Rafine area, new and expanded business opportunities, including Devil's Backbone Brewery Company, Mohawk Manufacturing, Modine, the Natural Bridge Industrial Park, Heatex, Victoria Development, White's Travel Center, Multiple hotels, many restaurants, and small businesses have resulted in substantial increases in the county's tax revenues and creation of new jobs for our residents. And whereas Vicky's guided the county through the complex legal wrangling required to repurpose to the highest and best use for public schools and participated in many borrowing and bond issuance, resulting in improvements and renovations to all our county schools. And whereas in coordination with the Office of Community Development, Vicky shepherded literally hundreds of special exemption permits, rezoning, and zoning determinations with positive net impacts on both residents and businesses. And whereas through all her work, much of it late into the night, Vicky was unerringly faithful to both the letter and intent of the law and unfailing in her efforts to protect the county, its boards, and its taxpayers' legal interests, and in doing so, both employed and required of others the highest possible legal, ethical, and moral standards. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Rockbridge, Virginia, does hereby express deep appreciation to Vicki L. Huffman for her many years of dedicated service and offers sincere congratulations and best wishes for a happy and productive retirement with her family, horses, and pets. Adopted this 26th day of February 2024. And I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second? Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
All right, heads up. All right, good move.
We will now welcome citizens' comments. Please note that those wishing to speak about items advertised for public hearing can do so during that portion of the agenda scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock. When your name is called, please address the board at the podium stating your first and last name and magisterial district. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. There is a timer on the table for your convenience. Is there anyone signed up to speak in person?
Madam Chair, there is no one signed up.
All righty. Is there anyone online with their hand raised?
No, there aren't. There is.
Mhm. Is there anyone in the meeting room who wishes to address the board but did not sign up? Okay, then we will move on to the approval of the February 12th, 2024 minutes. Are there any questions or comments for either set of minutes? If not, is there a motion to adopt the February 12th minutes?
So move.
I guess there is only one set, correct?
I'll second. Yes.
All righty. Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day, Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Consideration of school appropriation resolution.
Yes, we request approval from the board of a resolution authorizing $225,126 in new grant funds for the school fund 50.
All right. Are there any questions, comments?
I move we approve the resolution, and accept the grants.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Consideration of county appropriation resolution.
Yes, we are requesting approval, of the resolution authorizing additional appropriations and the payment of bills. The payment of bills this period amounts to $471,446.14, and additional appropriations requested of $26,250 for the Community Development Department.
Any questions for Mr. Harrison? Not? Can I have a motion, please? Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Consideration of approval of Vision Government contract modifications. Mr. Yannick?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to double check as well. I received a letter that was from the Vision company later this afternoon that I thought would be a useful letter to read over as we're discussing this. Okay, so to try to give us an overview of what we're looking at here, the county, we use a system, it's a computer assisted mass appraisal system. Our current, well, the vendor we have had historically is called Stonewall Technologies Group, and their application software runs off of the AS400 system. Really, it's a essential tool for the Commissioner of Revenue across the state. Every state locality has some variety of a CAMA system to keep up with real estate values and for real estate reassessments. There have been some concerns with Stonewall Technology going back since I started. They had a very small staff. Their owner had recently, within a year and a half, maybe 2 years, he passed away. And I think he was the heavy lifter for their program. Since then, I believe it was in September of 2022, where this company Vision acquired Stonewall Technologies company, making their product and their customers part of their company. And they provided the localities a vehicle to either migrate to their system. They have a SQL based, Microsoft SQL Server based program, very modern software. It's used, by most of the locale across the nation. They have a footprint in a lot of different states. In Virginia specifically, I believe the number of that letter currently serve about 65 counties and cities in the Commonwealth of Virginia. During that time, there's 17 former Stonewall clients that have migrated or are committed to migrate to their CAMA solution. So in a nutshell, what we have are two completely disparate systems. One that's built on the very old AS400 technology, which was the original Stonewall product. And then we have Vision's more modern interface, more modern system. And, they gave the localities the vehicle to, you could stay on the existing software if you decided to, if you wanted to, but it was noted that that would not be continually supported for the ongoing future. And that is, they do specify in this letter that they will be sunsetting support of the current Stonewall technology on the AS400 by the end of December 2024. They put in there that you can, if you desire to extend it for 2025, they could theoretically extend it. It's going to be a more costly than what we currently pay for the annual support and maintenance fees. And then the other option is they were offering a highly discounted rate for the migration services and the implementation services to migrate away from the Stonewall AS400 platform into their more modern SQL platform. But as the cost of their newer platform is much higher, it exceeds the rate that we can increase for an upgrade without either putting it out as an RFP or without board approval. I'm not sure the exact legality language around it, but I think it's something about in order for us to have an increased fee of that, it needs to be approved by the board.
I'm sorry, is that because it's been purchased by, Stonewall was purchased by Vision?
Stonewall was acquired by Vision, and so technically their product is under the umbrella of Vision. There are only 2 existing staff from the original Stonewall Technologies, Tricia and Goldie, and support on it even now is getting harder and harder. We find there's a lot of times where they're not sure what the issue is. There's a certain few areas where a few of the commissioner revenue have some desktop application that's meant to interface with that, but for several of them, we just can't get them to work. And as many times as I leverage their support, they don't know the issue either. We still are able to get what we need because a few of them are working, but run the exact same installation steps and it doesn't work on another machine. And I just don't know the answer to it.
So if one hadn't acquired, I'm sorry if I'm just jumping in and asking a question, but just for clarification, if they hadn't, Stonewall and Vision hadn't acquired Stonewall, we would be putting out an RFP.
Most likely, yeah, I think so. Or, I mean, it's hard to say how long that company would have been viable. But yes, essentially. One thing they do note in there, should you desire to migrate to the Vision Camo solution, because they're mentioning it as a vision to vision migration, they can provide a direct to contract addendum or a cooperative procurement contracting vehicle to make the procurement process more simple. And I guess it's because of that kind of caveat that they're stating that it doesn't need to be bid to RFP by making this upgrade because it's technically under the umbrella. So it's a kind of funky scenario because when we're saying we're migrating from one to the other, it really is 2 completely separate systems that you're migrating from. And I think the big issue is that there's just the support for what we currently have is just it's getting harder for them to support. And obviously they're not gonna, and as they explained, basically they can't continue to support it past a certain point. So I think if we did a extension to stay on the existing one, if we did go through 2025, that would be the cutoff. They would no longer support it. So we basically have the options we could theoretically just stay on it and never have support past a certain date, but I don't think there's other concerns that I don't really want to express publicly, but I'd be happy to address those questions in private manner because there's concerns that I don't want to bring up publicly about it. Any questions?
Are there other vendors that offer?
Yes, there are other camo solutions. I'm part of this Valguide group, which is a Virginia locality IT directors group. There's some of their localities prior to this had gone to a system called Concise Camo, where they offer a similar migration service. And I think that particular solution doesn't have the same as high of a subscription cost or a recurring fee, but it's also one that we will require a lot more work on our end.
Does this software need to talk with the new software that we're purchasing for the county?
Yes, it will.
It does need to.
Yeah, I mean, it's how we look up our real estate values. So it's a big part of factoring what tax revenue would be based on real estate values. So yes, they would be to their face in some manner.
Is there a sense of urgency that this has to be done right away? Or, I mean, because they say they're good at least through December 24. Is there a reason why we wouldn't want to explore all options?
I mean, I think we've been putting this off for a little over a year now. I think it was about when we received this notice from them in 22, fall of 22. They initially mentioned that, you know, if we can have a decision by like March of last year. But I think just it's been something that's kind of keeps getting, it's never making it to the board I think there was some contract negotiation issues. And I don't know all the details on that. That would be Vicky's wheelhouse. So I can't really speak to what all those issues were.
But wasn't part of it savings on the migration if you did upgrade? Significant savings on the migration.
Were very significant. I mean, it's about 50% savings on the data migration. When you compare what their normal rate would have been because they're basing it off of how many parcels we have in the county. And when I compared that to the other Concise, the migration costs were a little less with Vision than with Concise.
So this is the company that you want.
I think it would be a good decision. Yeah. I know it's a costly decision, but I think, as you know, I've heard multiple times we want to modernize and we want our systems to be more accessible for our citizens, easier to manage in-house with our staff. What we currently have is not very accessible for citizens. It's not really at all. And it requires a lot of work on our end to keep everything up to date and fix these problems. I can attest I've probably wasted days and days and days trying to resolve just very basic things that should have worked. And then some of them are still not resolved, and we have a little workaround that we use to get around them. But I mean, from everything I've seen, from all the localities that I've heard from, they're very pleased with this software. I think I don't know if Brooke would be willing to come up, but as she talks to other commissioners, they all seem very pleased with it as well. But you know, I haven't talked to other commissioners. So it does seem like it would be, as we're starting this process of migrating all this data and looking at a newer main county platform, this is certainly be one that is more easily integratable with.
So you have no concerns with us moving forward with this company?
No, I don't.
Okay. I mean, I guess I misunderstood your earlier comments that
my concerns are on the platform currently.
Okay. All right. Thank
you. Ms. Thomas, would you be willing to come up and give us your take? Obviously, there are some legal contractual issues that are giving us pause. I want to help, and I agree with what Stefan said about I'm certainly one of those who have championed software to help our citizens, but there's a large expense and some drawbacks to that contract. So we need to examine all we can. So, a specific question, and I don't know that you would necessarily know the answer, but maybe we have a little more time to find out. Have other localities signed this contract? And
they have.
Okay.
The city of Winchester has upgraded to Vision. Augusta, Shenandoah. The city of Covington is getting ready to update, and the city of Stanton has upgraded. And there may be others, and everyone so far has been pleased with it.
And as far as you're aware, they have signed the contract.
Yes. Yes.
Vision has presented.
Yes.
Thank you. That was my specific question. I don't know if others have thoughts.
I guess I would say, can the process go back to the finance committee to work through those issues or financial issues?
I guess you can always refer back, but I don't think be honest, I think they're in the driver's seat.
Some of that's
And-
frustration at that. Yeah,
and,
they've got us.
You know, they have the product. We need the product. We don't have a lot to negotiate with. Either we're gonna take it, it sounds like to me, you're gonna take it under their terms. They've adjusted a little bit. Or they'll walk away just like we would. And then what do we have? That's what I'm saying. Well, the product we have isn't sufficient. You know, sometimes you get what you pay for too. So
Typically, wouldn't we RFP that there to see what, you know, what type of contractual issues are out there or what prices are out there from competition?
I believe this would, yeah, that normally would fall in that category of going to an RFP. When you're looking at a,
Gotta get closer.
you're looking at a new solution like this, yeah, that would generally be a RFP project. And that's where, again, I think that's this kind of funky scenario in the sense that they technically now own the product, so you're upgrading with the current company. And I think that was either their loophole that they used to offer this non-RFP option with the highly discounted rate.
Yeah, that was it in a nutshell, is their offer to, if you went with this option, significantly discount mostly the migration cost, which is large cost. If we do an RFP, that offer is off the table.
If we ask other companies to give us a price,
I'm sure Vision will would likely also bid, but they're not going to offer the discount in their bid.
isn't that a red light in its, I mean, a red flag in itself? That's alarming to me that a company will say, this price is only good if you don't ask anybody else. I understand. I certainly want the staff to have the product that they feel is necessary. The process is what I'm having a hard time with. And this reaction from a company that don't talk to anybody else and will give you a great deal, that doesn't sound necessarily like a great deal.
Well, they didn't
That's
say,
my,
if I may, I'm sorry, they didn't say you can talk. They're just saying, they weren't speaking for anyone else. They were just saying, if you decide to, we want you to continue with us. That's why we're offering you this deal. It wasn't just because they're.
but they're saying don't get prices from any other company.
No, they
It's
didn't.
specifically going to an RFP.
Okay.
So we can theoretically, we can gather other pricing the best that we can. I don't know, some of that, just, I've seen, and again, I mean, what I mentioned, the concise camera is another solution. The only reason I have any idea of what it is the group that I'm part of it mentioned what their cost per parcel of a migration was. And what they kind of mentioned their fees with it. So I don't have a.
Simon, can you speak on some of the other commissioners on?
Majority of the ones that I speak with have Stonewall. So I'm not sure, I don't know anything about the concise system or who actually uses it.
So you don't know if any of the other commissioners that you've talked to looked at any other softwares?
Well, they did consider concise, but they wasn't using it at the time. All the commissioners I have spoken to have used Stonewall, and they all chose to go with Vision.
Through this similar arrangement.
Yeah.
Softman, are there any legal concerns? I don't want you to leave here not doing anything tonight.
There are several legal concerns with this contract. One of them being the ability to have a no cap annual increase on the cost of maintenance. It could be any amount of increase on an annual basis. Another issue is that in the event of default, whether that be If that should be after the implementation fee is paid, they will not refund or credit the county with any of the implementation fee costs, even though the default would be the issue, the problem with the company, not the county. So the county would be out the $90,000 in implementation costs. One other less concerning legal issue was the limitation to 1 year, which was a bit of a compromise on their part. A 1 year statute of limitations to bring any causes of action related to the contract. Typically, contract statute of limitations is 5 years. And overall, the contract is extremely onerous. I've had issues with it from the beginning.
Would it do any good to table this matter and work on this contract with the company a little more and or you think they're
I think Ms. Tomlin and I have gotten a pretty strong response from the company that that is the best they will do. We have attempted to negotiate the more significant points, the first three that I mentioned, and they refuse to give on anything but a 6-month latitude on statute of limitations.
I don't see why we wouldn't go and get prices from other vendors. We might come right back to this, but is there any harm in getting prices from another vendor?
If I understood right, then this offer from Visions will no longer exist?
Only if we did an RFP. If we look at, do our own research, I believe that the offer would still stay, as I understood.
That's how I understand it.
That's how I understand it as well.
So if we put an RFP on the street, then that current offer would no longer be available. So if we the offer would no longer be if we put an RFP on the street to open up bids, but I'm not sure the avenue yet, doing our own research on other options. Because there's other options. There's other cama products. I haven't researched all of them. It was a while back when I was doing this research. And again, I there is this one concern of mine that I really don't want to bring up in a public meeting.
Then don't bring it up in a public meeting.
It makes me very nervous to wait even longer, and I know our RFP processes can take a very long time. Those are a few of my, if we wanted to do the RFP route, I wish we would have done it a year ago, for instance. We are here.
Well, I think we're talking about prices.
Yes. Based on Ms. Tomlin's answer there, that other jurisdictions have gone through this exact process. That helps me a little bit, I guess. But yeah, if we could get just a little more information about what the other options are and some amount of cost associated with those, I think that could help steer us to where you already are, which is this is probably the most cost-effective option. But with those contract issues, it gives me just a little bit of pause. I feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Is there any time limitation on this offer from Vision?
Well, it looked like in this letter that I received this afternoon that essentially when they sunset the support of the current Stonewall by December 2024, that competitive pricing will no longer be available if no decision was made by that point.
So we have a little
Which
bit
has been a pretty significant extension because I think from the original go, it was almost saying it was like December of 22 or like mid 23. So I think so they've extended that.
Well, I think reading between the lines, I think we're more concerned about what we currently have, and sounds like it could be on its last leg. It might just be an assumption I'm making, and that you'd hate to. So, I'm not saying we have to decide tonight, but we should be. If we're gonna look for other things, we should try to do it in the next couple of weeks.
I'm interested in hearing, yeah, as soon as Mr. Yonji can gather some information. I'm not yet pushing it out far. Just let us know.
Yeah, I can get numbers for solutions that I've heard of. I'll have to reference back some old emails with that group.
Utilize your peers there in your group and see what you can come up with.
And then I'll check even, I think, as we were doing that ERP application, the Tyler company offered their, CAMA was another thing. They have a solution for that. I haven't heard positive things about that one recently, but that is, I can try to get numbers through those particular ones that I'm aware of.
Thank you. And if we can help you do that, if there's something on our end that we can do to move this along or help you with, is there a consultant that can help you?
Bob's
with
good
this
at
particular-
investigation.
He's already doing it. He's on his phone.
I think us getting this
Oh.
conversation started is the help that I needed. So
Okay. Well, thank you.
And Ms. Huffman, in your last couple of days, maybe you can let the company know that the board is also concerned with their contract.
I'd be
Whether
happy
that'll
to.
make a difference or not, but maybe when they find out we were concerned and didn't vote on it tonight, they might have some concessions.
I think we had intended to have a meeting about this a while back, but then it got pulled from the agenda. And I remember that their vice president, who we had original talks with, wanted to make sure he was here or available for that meeting. So if we needed it to another time, or you want to talk to somebody from them, I'm sure we can arrange that as well.
Let's gather that information and then we'll get another date set soon for us to discuss, continue discussion.
Okay.
I would think.
Can we do it 2 weeks or we're gonna need a month?
I just don't want to put too much pressure on Stefan, but
I
Yeah,
can
I'm
get
fine.
I can get some. That's not too much. I can get some numbers together for
For the next board meeting?
let's put it, yeah, let's.
I can probably
2
have some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be too.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tomlin.
We will go into public hearing. We'll open the public hearing sorry, Chris, I will, this is the Regina Donald application for conditional zoning map amendment from general residential R1 to zoning district to the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. Mr. Sladen?
Bear with me here. Briefly summarize, Miss Regina D. Donald, 2766 Brownsburg Turnpike, Brownsburg, Virginia, has made an application for conditional zoning map amendment. The property is owned by Regina D. Donald with that address above, and is located on the northeast side of the intersection of Brownsburg Turnpike 252 and Sterrett Road. If you don't mind, I'm gonna zoom down. The property is highlighted in magenta. The property is currently in the general residential zoning district. That's a R1 zoning district, and is proposed to be conditionally rezoned to the agricultural and general use district. The property is further identified as tax map number 26A-A-12 and consists of 2.091 acres per tax records. On January 10th, 2024, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the rezoning application. At its February 12th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting, the board did not open the public hearing to allow Ms. Donald to further consider offering proffers associated with the rezoning application. Ms. Donald had submitted, since that time, Ms. Donald has submitted the proffer statement for your consideration. Would like to note that Ms. Huffman has prepared 2 different ordinances, one with conditions that would be conditions associated with the proffers, attached conditions attached to the rezoning ordinance, and the other one without. And that's why I say Ms. Donald has submitted proffers for your consideration. With that, I'd like to share the screen again and have Ms. Donald come up just to briefly talk about the changes since the last meeting. We could check that for you.
I do not see him.
And the Zoom information is available on the board's page.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you once again regarding my request to rezone my property from R1 residential to A2 agricultural. I have a few comments that I would like to share with you as you consider your decision. I had the opportunity to view the newly created presentation developed from some of my proximate landowner neighbors, and I imagine that's in your folder today. For clarity, I will refer to it as the neighbor presentation, and I will refer to Brownsburg Turnpike as Route 252. The neighbor presentation highlights the history of Brownsburg and includes some photos of, quote, high quality historic renovations, end quote. There is no dispute that these impressive homes add charm to the village that we call home. It does sadden me, although it does not surprise me, that the presentation failed to include some equally historic, but perhaps more modest buildings. The Gills Nicholas Spring Tavern, the Patterson Community House, the Lunsford Shoemaker Shop, the Oliver's Care Log Cabin and Smithy, and many other homes were not included. It is unfortunate that these homes did not make the cut. I know that my neighbor presentation included at least 3 homes that support my plan. That indicates to me that one can own a beautifully remodeled historic home and still support a modest agritourism venture. The two are not mutually exclusive. The suggestion that the plan is unproven and that the board should delay rezoning is simply not true. The orchard has been growing for over 10 years, and the harvest this year was sufficient to share at least 20 sample bags. And then several months later, when it became clear there would be no sales, 25 half-picked bags of fruit with friends and neighbors. It is true that there have been no apple sales to date, but that is for obvious reasons. And it is important to remember that the idea of selling grew specifically out of neighbor requests. Similarly, feedback from orchard tours strongly support community interest in future orchard activities, grafting and apple sales of southern heirloom varieties not commonly seen in this area. This in turn supports the desire of the community and is highlighted as a goal by the neighbor presentation to invite groups into the village. The county has already stated that the sales of apples grown in R1 should not be sold in other locations and suggested rezoning as one alternative. Given this, moving the sales to another location is not the solution. I have come to appreciate also that the fact that access to the orchard during sales is integral to the educational component. Demonstration of apple grafting, rootstock selection, pruning techniques, choice of variety are at the heart of this endeavor. This is what sets this idea apart from a fruit stand and will draw the interest of visitors. It is this mix of fruit display and sales, education, and attendee involvement that encourages others to participate and embark on their own food security journey. What better time to encourage others to grow their own food than when the cost of fruit is so prohibitive for many? Neighbor concerns have been addressed with the proffer that is voluntarily offered. It was developed through consultation with an attorney who specializes in land use and has been reviewed by the county attorney for content and appropriate language. It prohibits all the land uses that have been brought to my attention as concerns, as well as some additional ones that I chose to add. The neighbor presentation concern that is raised over their proximity to proposed A2 land is surprising, given that 3 out of the 4 landowners that developed the presentation bought their own properties that directly adjoin A2 zoned land and are located no more than 40 feet across the street from A2 zone land or both. The Cosgriff land adjoins Mulberry Grove, a parcel zoned A2. The Pappet land adjoins the Cosgriff land, a parcel zoned A2. The Janes land adjoins the Ayers land, a parcel zoned A2. I find it difficult to believe that if my orchard located on A2 land behind my home built in 1885, it would pull at the thread of historic Brownsburg any more than the aforementioned adjoining A2 properties. It is with a sensitivity to community in mind that I have proposed my rezoning. I did not select a possible entry nearest the orchard, which might have more directly impacted the Cosgriff, Pappet, and Hamlin Haney properties. The selected new driveway location and entry into the orchard is located off Route 252. The proposed new driveway location would increase the distance from the Janes driveway entrance to my driveway from the current 40 feet to 187 feet. Similarly, the new entrance is located well past the Janes property line. That owner has a total frontage along 252 of approximately 92 feet. But my property stretches an additional 243 feet along 252. And it is in this portion of my property, which lies across from land zoned A2, that the driveway would be built. This selection is intentional, and it's designed to minimize any disruption to traffic or existing neighbors. The new driveway would also be longer than the current one and would move all visitor traffic to the dedicated parking spaces on the interior of my property. The proposed multi-storage building was included in my description of plans in the spirit of sharing plans as a whole. And at the same time, the storage building is permitted in both R1 and A2 and has no bearing on this zoning decision. The same thoughtful consideration was given when the relatively small scope and estimated number of hours per month for the orchard was determined. Even the neighbor presentation refers to the endeavor as, quote, not a huge enterprise, end quote. And I concur with that. This request could have included a full-time agricultural business to maximize profit and sales over design. Rather, it has been thoughtfully created to be a good fit in this rural village, which is located in an agriculturally rich location. I ask that you consider this information and approve my request for rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Chris, would you like to comment? All right. And I will open the public hearing.
This deep happen.
Good evening, everybody. I was the one that sent you the presentation that Regina is talking about for myself and my adjacent neighbors. And I just, before I start, want to see if anyone had any questions.
Ms. Pappett, let me just tell the audience what we've received.
Okay.
The Board of Supervisors has received written communications from Linda Smith, Mike Smith, Michael Strickler, Dee Pappett, and the Pappett letter was prepared by Dee and Michael Pappett, Tom Hamlin and Don Haney, Beverly James, and Colleen Cosgriff.
Correct. That's correct. Yes. And I meant to say I'm from the Walkers Creek District. Sorry about that. So I didn't know if there were any questions from that presentation that anyone had to ask. If not, I just want to say, as far as the proximity of the buildings that I showed in those presentations, we are adjacent landowners. Those weren't cherry-picked buildings in the village to show proximity there. We all are adjacent landowners, and I just felt like it was important to show the close proximity there. So I want to clarify that. In terms of A2 properties around us, that's what Brownsburg is. It's a historic strip of homes surrounded by agricultural land. So it's not unusual to have agricultural properties out your back door. But I think it's important to understand that we all purchased our properties based on the fact that they were in a residential zoning. And when you change your zoning, you're asking your neighbors to give up something that they value, something that they bought into, because you've changed your mind after living there. That doesn't always seem like a fair trade in property rights. But overall, I would say that we find the proffers offered, although we appreciate them greatly, they're very inadequate. It's a list of 5 things out of 40 that property can potentially be, not just now, but down the road. That's important to us, the long-term use of that. And I think what's missing from the proffers is that nowhere in there does it talk about apples. I mean, this is going to be about apples. Let's make it about apples. So it never states what you are, what you want to be, what your hours of operation are going to be. All the things that are going to affect your neighbors are not in there. It's just a short list of a few things that were brought up by people in the community that they were concerned about. And one of the things you have to understand is nobody knows what proffers are. If you ask someone about proffers, they just don't know what that is. So it's a very difficult conversation for the public to have because we don't have that background on what it is. And so when people bring up, well, I'm worried about this or I'm worried about that, that's not to create a list of proffers. That's just to share concerns. So I think that's a little bit out of balance here. And I think, and I mentioned this in that presentation, you know, one of the things that we do not have clear determination on, and it's a key question that underpins all of this, is whether or not the apples can be sold off the property. That's the whole reason for rezoning. And when we checked into that question, we were found that it could be illegal to do that. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I mean, I'm speaking for several folks here, but
Thank you, but thank you for your comment.
thank you.
Next up is Cindy Oliver, followed by Sam Rao.
Good evening. I don't believe that.
You're in what district? What
Oh,
magistrate?
I live in Brownsburg. I was one of the unmentioned homeowners in the Brownsburg proper. I never evaluated the residential zoning when I bought the place. As a neighbor in Brownsburg, I just bought a charming house in the village. Regina was one of the first neighbors to welcome me. I personally don't see any pitfalls in, not only is she on the very end of town, she's actually across the street and kind of almost outside of town, if you will. And we are all completely surrounded by agricultural land. While I don't understand all of the long-term legal pitfalls that might be outstanding for the what about the future, what she's doing is really wonderful. And I would love to be able to buy apples from a community that I chose to live in for its charm and its rural countryside. And I'm really offended that it's such a big problem. And none of the neighbors who are against it ever came to me personally and said, what do you think? And I would have gladly have invited them in and talked about what their concerns were. But from what I've heard here, it's all been kind of private and behind the back. So the entrance to the driveway that has been proposed, I think makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't appear to be dangerous to traffic in any way, and it's encompassed by her property. And the orchard is well established. So if I understood what the concerns about zoning it agricultural are, but as a resident in a residential neighborhood just down the street from her, I have no problem whatsoever. I think it's wonderful, and I embrace the opportunity to go and find out about grafting and maybe do something like that in my yard, on just a tree or 5 or what have you, on my little half acre. So maybe I don't understand the larger picture, but as a neighbor and a Brownsburg community resident, I 100% embrace what she's doing, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. So I hope that
Thank
you'll
you.
consider that.
Yes, thank you.
Rao, followed by Amy Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sam Rao, and my wife and I, Beth and I, own the 8 Hayes Creek Road, which is known as the Lucas House, and we're in the Walkers Creek district. And I think I'm one in the video. Rumor has it. Our property is in sight of the Donalds property. We are in favor of the Donalds having a zoning change to accommodate their orchard operation legally. We've talked with the Donalds a good bit. They've been gracious enough to answer any questions that we had. With the number of 45 dwarf trees that they have and an expected production of less than 100 bushels a year, I can't see how this is going to significantly affect the community. I don't think there needs to be business hours. And most of us in Brownsburg know what proffers are. The board members of the Brownsburg Community Association should definitely have the opportunity to express their personal view on such issues, but not on behalf of the organization. Some members of the group, like myself, own property in Brownsburg. Others may live in Rockbridge County, but a large number of the members of the Brownsburg Community Association don't live in Rockbridge County at all. I would like to remind those who are in opposition to this that there could be some far worse alternatives with a residential zoning that could have some more adverse effects on our neighborhood than what the Donalds are asking for. There could be another house, or there could be a mobile home. The Donalds, retired professionals, a pharmacist, an engineer, did the right thing by going through the process and asking for approval. They have the approval of the zoning board. They should have approval for their honesty and efforts, and I hope you as a board will give it to them.
Thanks, Drew.
Miss Amy Moore, followed by Haley Moore.
Hi, my name is Amy Moore. I'm in the Walkers Creek district. I've lived in Brownsburg for 11 or 12 years now. Brownsburg is a wonderful community place. It is a bird sanctuary. So how wonderful is it that we are going to have apple trees that are going to bring in the pollinators to keep our flowers in Brownsburg, because we have a garden tour in Brownsburg. I don't know if you know about that or not, but how wonderful will it be that the pollinators will come in and pollinate all these flowers in Brownsburg, and then the birds can eat the fruit that these trees are going to supply. That's what Brownsburg is. So what a great cause that she is looking to keep Brownsburg alive with the garden tours. She wants to be part of it. She's got a love and a passion. My children are young. I've got some of the youngest children in town, some of the most children in town, except for the Cogsriffs, who've got the same amount. So how great would it be that my children could go and learn this technique, how to survive for themselves, to produce food for themselves. And I also think that it's wonderful in today's day and age, with inflation going through the roof the way it is, that somebody is thinking about providing food for our community. I've had apples show up on my doors. My kids love apples. To be able to walk down the road and pick up apples to make, apple butter or the apple pie in my own community, that is fabulous. I think that it is a wonderful thing that with the inflation and stuff like that, looking to, have some extra income coming in instead of being retired and wanting the government to provide for us. This is a way for her to supplement some income with the way that our prices are going. Brownsburg is a 25 miles an hour zone. So where she wants the entrance to the property is perfect. Traffic's already going to be coming slow. There's stop signs there. There's a bridge there. I think it's a wonderful thing that she has to offer. And I think that it's great when people think of others, is a pretty awesome thing when it's not all about ourselves and my house. How about helping feed our communities and, you know, help a neighbor, because the Donaldsons are somebody that would be there to help you out if you needed something. And I can't wait for my kids to take a school trip, Castle Christian School, to take a school trip there to learn how to do these different techniques and stuff like that. I think it's a wonderful thing, and thank you for Regina for thinking of others and not just yourself. I think it's very important because Brownsburg is about community. We have all the gardeners and stuff come together and give food for the food pantry and stuff. So my 3 minutes didn't go off already.
Yes,
It did. I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We
turn that buzzer down, but
okay.
it's good.
No, all I
you
have to
for
say is
your
I love
comments.
Brownsburg, and Brownsburg is a wonderful place. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Haley Moore, followed by Chris Lego.
I'm Haley Moore. I live in the Walkers Creek area. I was actually a member of the Brownsburg Executive Board myself. And I am actually very much for this. I see this as, I mean, I'm one of the younger members of our community. I see this as an amazing opportunity for us to invest in our future. I see this as investing in the future generations that will one day be Brownsburg, instead of closing our doors and, for lack of better words, belittling our neighbors. We are expanding our horizons, and we are, again, investing in the little ones. We're investing in the beauty of Brownsburg and the community and the prosperity. And that's not all I've got to say other than that. But
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
That's all that's signed up.
Okay.
I'm Chris Lego. I live in Brownsburg. And I want to say that Regina's dream of this sharing her crafting fruit production is wonderful. And it's a great idea, and it sounds like a great project. What this has come to at this point is not exactly the dream she brought to me. For instance, the proffers that she has written up are not at all what some of us would like to see in the way of proffers. The term proffers, well, these are things she named are things that some people looked at that list and said, what if we had this? What if we had that? But as Dee said, that list has many things on it, and changing that property to an A2 zone would affect all of us further down the line when she's done. So that is a concern. The kind of proffer I would have liked to have seen, and the rest of us maybe, would be something along the lines of, this property may only be used for a small orchard business, teaching grafting and selling fruit from my trees here. Her dream. This is the dream that she brought to me. So now I'm a little confused about why she isn't pursuing it in a more, a way that would make the community happier. If she wrote it proper like that, that would be proof to her neighbors that she cares about the community and shares their concerns. And still, she could have her dream too. So that's one thing. And then I just had another idea, and I don't know if this would work or not, but I wonder if we could keep the R1 zoning, and maybe she could give you guys a list of all the days she'd like to be open and have things, and you could give her some kind of special exceptions for those days, but keep that zoning. So there's
Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
We do have some more in the back.
Is there anyone online?
There's no, nobody got their hand raised. The gentleman in the back.
Sure. Would you like to come up?
I'm Jeff Shingleton. I live at 22 Hayes Creek Road, Brownsburg, Magisterial District, Walkers Creek. And I had to write all this down so I wouldn't forget it all. Zoning rules have been carefully and purposely developed for the entire county. This was an important process when it was developed. Areas have zones specifically for industrial, business, agricultural, residential activities. Residential zoning is specifically reserved for areas like the village of Brownsburg. These areas are reserved for families, individuals, children, the elderly, and other people who wish to live in neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are a critical component of Rockbridge County. They provide a haven for those wishing to live with neighbors in a friendly, safe, and sociable environment. Everybody knows this. This is why things are zoned residential. You know, they don't want other activities that interfere with, you know, our lives. Anyway, so it follows that it's a huge decision to permanently upset the status of a neighborhood by introducing industrial, some industrial, some agricultural activities. That's a huge decision because it's long-term. When the people of Brownsburg were initially introduced to the concept of rezoning the Donald property, we were all told that the rezoning was simply in order for Regina to share a passion for her orchard. Wonderful. Neighbors were generally supportive of Regina's idea. And it was only later that it was learned that Regina had decided not to limit the activities to the orchard activities. That came after. That decision to not restrict the activities is the whole point here. And it has upset those neighbors who are understandably concerned about all the other agricultural activities that might be conducted by Regina or any future owners. I mean, it came as a huge shock. So this is for you guys now. In order to acknowledge the importance and the legitimacy of the zoning process and zoning categories, and in order to preserve the residential nature of our neighborhoods, it's important that the Board of Supervisors deny the request until we can be assured that the activities on the Donald property will be limited to the orchard activities. The residential nature of the neighborhoods must be preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, check online one more time.
No one with their hand raised.
All righty. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Sladen, is there any clarifications that we may make?
No,
Or you may make?
answer any questions the board have, but no comments this time.
Proffers are offered voluntarily by the property owner, correct?
That's correct.
No. So, I mean, if I was a property owner, I wouldn't want to limit what I could do down the road either. So I feel like she's done enough and has offered some conditions to help.
And she, by going from,
Chair,
oh,
I was going to say,
yeah,
maybe we should
absolutely.
close the public hearing before we have board.
I was going to ask, can I ask him one more question?
Yes, ma'am. But I just didn't want that to get away from us. So we
Thank
don't
you.
do something.
Thank you for the reminder. I need it. I'm sure. Mr. Sladen, I just wanted to clarify. So they are completely voluntary. They were not written by Rockbridge County.
No, they were drafted. The original language was drafted by Ms. Donald's attorney, and staff did work on the wording of those, but the intent was exactly the same. I will say that.
If there's nothing else, then I will close the public hearing. And gentlemen,
I think Ms. Donald has done all she can do to obtain support. I appreciate the board's patience in allowing the community to have more time to work on that. And we do have some proffers that she brought, and that's good. So I really appreciate all her work on that. And I disagree with Mr. McDaniel's comment of property owner does have some ability to determine what they're going to do. And I do see some of the open-endedness of this, but she has offered some proffers to mitigate some of that, and the property sits, as it's been pointed out, next to agricultural zones. I don't think it's an inordinate request to bring.
I would,
That's my thoughts.
my feeling is that she's also giving up any ability to use her land as residential, another house on that site. Correct, Mr. Sladen?
Yes, currently, in a residential zoning district, currently zoned residential, it's a 1 acre lot size with well and drain field, or with drain field, I should say. And so being that the property is over 2 acres, she does have the ability to have a second home site, obviously contingent on health department approval. With an agricultural zoning district, that changes to a 2 acre minimum lot size. So she would be prohibited to add a second dwelling.
Well, I've been to Brownsburg a couple of times, and listening tonight, it seems to be a pretty close-knit community. Although listening to some of the comments, I know that whatever the decision made tonight, there are going to be some disappointed people. But I hope that you can pull yourselves back together as a community and don't let this be destructive to what you have in your small little community in Brownsburg. I appreciate the work everybody's done on this, and I appreciate all the emails and comments made to the board.
anything else?
Anything you want to add?
Fine. Mr. McDaniel?
I have nothing else to offer. I mean, the property owner has rights as well, and I'm ready for a motion if somebody wants to make one.
Looks like everybody's looking at me all of a sudden again. I move we approve with the rezoning ordinance with the conditions that Ms. Donald brought.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you all. Christopher and Kelly Johansson.
Yes, if you bear with me, I'm gonna pull the property up. So we might have to, I was thankful that the computer worked the first time, but we might have to do this without technology. My computer has had some issues all day today. Mr. Christopher and Kelly Johansson, address of 3952 Bratton's Run Road, has made an Goshen, Virginia 24439, has made an application for a special exception permit to develop and operate a campground. The property is owned by Christopher and Kelly Johansson, with the address above is located on the south side of Bratton's Run Road, approximately 0.55 miles west of the intersection of Bratton's Run and Maury River Road. Property is located in the agricultural transitional zoning district per section 603B.03-8 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Campgrounds are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. Property is further identified as tax map number 12-1-B, consisting of 2 acres per tax records. Property is located in the Walkers Creek Magisterial District. On February 14th, 2024, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, the location of the camping area shall be in substantial compliance with the proposed plans titled Proposed Location of Mobile Tiny House, Johansson Tract, Tax Map 12-1-B, dated January 15th, 2024. That map is included in your package. Number two, campground is limited to 1 camper, mobile tiny house, RV, travel trailer, or park model RV. Number three, duration of stays for each patron not to exceed 21 days in a calendar year and no more than 10 consecutive days. Number four, approval contingent upon Building Department, Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, and Health Department approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Christopher Johansson to answer any questions, review the projects in a little bit more detail, and review any questions that the board may have. I'll still try to get this going as well while he goes there, so if needed.
Good afternoon. Thanks for meeting. Chris did a great job of reviewing what we're trying to do. Was there any questions from the packet submitted?
Gentlemen?
I'll ask one since you're here.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
The pictures that were, is that
We're trying to see. Yeah.
going to be the actual?
What, can I see what
You got
picture?
three pictures, two, I guess one of the tiny home, and then I guess it's going to have a deck on it.
That is the unit we are looking to put on property. Yes, sir.
And the fire
And,
pit.
and the other one is an example of one we have in Powhatan, Virginia.
Okay. The
Just to
the
show
second
you.
one is the one you have in Powhatan, the one with the lights on the deck.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Pictures 2 and 3 are the one, if I remember from the written description, pictures 2 and 3 are the existing one in Powhatan, and picture number one is an example of the proposed tiny house.
Correct. The black one at the front deck is examples of what we have existing in Powhatan. And then the other one is an example of what we would be looking, the one unit we would be looking to add on that property.
I was able, apologize, I've had some
Yes,
computer
great.
issues all day. I was able to pull this up. Of course, it was on the south side of Bradensburg Road, further identified as 3952. The outline is approximately 2 acres in the agricultural zoning district, and I'm sorry, agricultural transitional zoning district, surrounded by the agricultural zoning district on 3 of the 4 sides, and to the rear is the industrial zoning district. So did want to get everyone familiar with the surrounding zone.
That conclude your presentation?
concludes my
All
presentation.
right, thank you. Then I will open the public hearing. Is that all right? Are you finished?
Yes. I am.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
There's no one signed up to speak.
Anybody online?
No one has their hands raised?
All righty, if there's nobody else to speak, then I will close the public hearing. Gentlemen?
Mr. Slayton, help me remember, condition 3 has some restriction on days in a year and so forth. Is that common language from a previous?
Well, we have done
Did the
this
planning-
several ways. Of course, the conditions are unique to the property. The very last one, we had a very similar request from Life Chapel, I believe, and at that time, based on the surroundings and based on essentially the access to it and surrounding area, there was not a common condition such as that one. In this particular case, the Planning Commission felt it was appropriate to put a duration of the stay for each patron not to exceed 21 days in the calendar year and no more consecutive 10 consecutive. As we've talked about in the past, there's no prohibition. Without this condition, there would be no prohibition of unlimited stays, if you will, for a patron.
And why would that be a bad thing?
The board expressed some concerns about that on the Life Chapel application, and so if y'all aren't concerned on someone living in an RV, renting out an RV for living, in an RV, that would be appropriate to remove that condition.
Well, I wouldn't call it an RV, but I know it's on wheels, and its location, I just don't see, if someone wanted to spend, 2 weeks, 3 weeks during hunting season, we're gonna say, no, you can't rent it out to them because it's.
So I
21
would,
days.
if we want to modify number 2, the campground is limited to 1 camper, mobile, tiny house, RV, travel trailer, or park model RV. So those would be the options of the type of vehicles.
I'm talking about length of stay.
This was what was advertised, correct?
Just a campground. Their conditions are not advertised.
Okay, but as a campground.
As a campground, yes.
You know, but I mean, I was talking about number 3, not.
Sure, no, and that I was commenting on, I agree, the mobile tiny house is a whole lot different than an RV, travel trailer or park model RV or one camper particularly. But I did want to make that point that it's not required to be a mobile tiny house.
I see.
And that does fit well with the definition of campground per 302.34 of the regulations. It states several type of existing camp trailers, if you will, and then goes on to say, or other such devices that may be developed and marketing for camping. So that was just something, it did resonate me, obviously, with the board's questions on the very similar request at the Life Chapel. And so that was mentioned as well at the planning.
I just think the locations are totally different.
Oh, sure.
And
that's what I'm trying to get to is some norm,
But maybe the applicant is perfectly comfortable with what is proposed. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I'll say the tiny house that we have in Powhatan is just geared for 2 people, and we mostly see people staying 3 to 5 days, not 3 weeks. I mean, I'm perfectly okay with that, with the what's in there. If it's removed, I mean, I'd be okay with that as well. I want to make the board happy, but I don't think anybody's going to stay there for 3 months or 6 months. That's not our plan to do that. But
no, but if I called you and said, look, I want to rent your tiny house at your nightly rate for 6 months,
I would
you'd be happy
I
too,
would.
wouldn't you?
I'd be tickled to death. But we are gearing for more 4 people, more family oriented, and more. Longer stays. We would hope for longer stays than 3 to 5 days. But if that could be moved, that'd be great. If not, then I don't think it's going to affect us too much.
I just wonder, are we thinking through the unintended consequence? I mean, have we thought through everything? And that's one thing that the planning commission, when this goes through,
This came from them.
Yes.
I don't want to.
Exactly.
And staff, I mean, I assume these periods were thought
They were
out
discussed
for,
during the-
yeah,
We started with, I think, 7 days, and then we extended it to 10 days, which I think will suit our needs just fine. And then I think we started with 14 total days, and we extended it to 21 days after some more consideration.
One thing to consider, obviously, after 30 consecutive days, it's no longer a short-term rental. No, as far as land use decision, that's completely up to y'all. But if someone did want to stay for 6 months, it would not be considered a short-term rental. Still would be considered
Revenue would be
campground,
different.
Well, I think I'm okay after. I just wanted to make sure that the planning commission that there had been conversation and that we had because we may, there could be somebody else may want to do this. So that's what I'm after, is just trying to get understanding of what we see is out.
Okay. Anything else, gentlemen?
No, I'm happy if she's happy with it.
I would move that we approve with those conditions or as the ordinance was drafted.
And I'd second that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Charles R. Flint.
Yes,
And Rebecca
in
Flint.
attendance this evening, we have Charles R. Flint, Senior, and his daughter, Amanda Flint. With that, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but bear with me. Mr. Flint and Rebecca L. Flint live at 193 Parsons Lane, Natural Bridge, Virginia, 578 have made an application to place a manufactured home in the general business zoning district. The property are located on the north side of Wolf Faulkner. Again, the mailing address is the Parsons Lane. The property that's under consideration this evening is associated with Wolf Faulkner, and it's located on the north side of Wolf Faulkner, further identified as 130, approximately 95 feet west of the intersection of Glades Lane, Private Road, and Wolf Faulkner. The properties are owned by Charles R. Flint Sr. and Rebecca L. Flint, further identified as tax map numbers 108A2-1-51-53, 43, 45, and 47. The properties were formerly identified as 11 Glades Lane, Glasgow, Virginia, and I say formally identify that because there was a single family dwelling. Address is 11 Glades Lane. That they went through the proper channels to demo that single family dwelling. And of course, has made an application to place a manufactured home on the property. Per section 605.03-13 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, manufactured homes are used by special exception in the General Business Zoning District, B1 Zoning District. The properties are located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. On February 14th, 2024, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and has recommended approval of the special exception permit with the following conditions. Number one, substantial compliance with the exhibit plat titled Exhibit Plat for Charles R. Flint Senior, prepared by Perkins and Orson, dated January 18th, 2024. Number two, approval contingent on Building Department, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Health Department and or PSA approvals, Public Service Authority approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Ms. Flint, and I will be able to pull this up, I hope, while she is reviewing the application.
Hey, how are you?
So they have been working with the PSA. I will pull this up. Bear with me. I apologize. This has been doing this all day. This shows 11 Glades Lane with the existing business zone in red. As far as location goes, this is going to be Wolf Faulkner Highway here. This is the Natural Bridge Industrial Development property here. Natural Bridge Heating and Air and Natural Bridge Self-Storage is located essentially catty corner. The Flints have worked with the, in this case, the EDA, the Rockbridge County EDA, or working with, I should say, to obtain a sewer line easement through their property that essentially currently parallels Virginia Manor, that will take public sewer to the property. There's currently, the existing house was served by public water already. We do have, of course, condition number 2 includes Health Department and or Public Service Authority approvals. Lord forbid something goes wrong with the PSA and they're unable to attain the access that easement. They obviously could attempt to reutilize the existing drain field. Okay, she is just saying that originally the sewer line was going to parallel Virginia Manor, but they have since shifted that proposed sewer line to the east, or it should be to the west.
Like right in front of the industrial park.
Over in this location. So I'm halfway scared to share.
But we did meet with the PSA and they approved everything per y'all's approval. We're just waiting on the final say. And they said they'd do all that.
And that's part of our ordinance, correct? I mean, our approval process. It's pending that.
Yes. One of the draft conditions is approval contingent on Building Department, VDOT, Health Department, and or PSA.
Chris, what type of grading is going to be required there? I know that area holds a lot of water, stagnant water.
We have some in your package. There were some existing pictures of the site, and it has the existing site has been graded, and so I'm not anticipating any further fill or cut. Obviously, the mobile home would be on some pier foundation. But there is no anticipating grading, either fill or cut, I should say. If needed, I can certainly share my screen showing the existing pictures. So in your package, we have a application. This is the substantial compliance that's referenced in condition number 2, prepared by Perkins and Orson.
Did you get the new one where he sent the easement?
I did not. So this is the existing site looking towards the Natural Bridge Heating and Air. I think there's a couple better pictures of it. The property lines are marked. I apologize. I'm not sure this is going to do it tonight. Computers give me a fit.
So
But there are three
where does the water come from?
The water is associated with public water in the area.
No, the
Water that stands?
Yes.
It's just like, it's lower ground. So the house that was there before, years ago, dirt was put up, around the house that was already there. On both sides of us, it's like swampland. It's just low cut. I mean, I guess it's coming out of the mountains is all I can say.
Well, there's a pipe that runs under 130 from the industrial plant, the holding ponds over there. The county, in its infinite wisdom, way back when, instead of running the water down to the river behind it, ran it across 130 there. So it's a swamp in there, and that worries me. I don't have a problem with the home or the application, but it worries me what potential problems they're going to have down the road and how that may affect future grading of those lots. Those lots from the house all the way until just about where our collection center are is what I'm talking about. It's miserable in there for it may be miserable for them. It's certainly miserable for the existing residents that live around there or work around there.
So trying to get this, I was trying to get the location. This is the proposed location here. And then the collection center Mr. McDaniel was referring to is, of course, located here.
It's really from Clarkstown Road or Lane right there to Glades Lane is the area that it's a swamp right in front of about where the K or the N is in Faulkner. There is where that pipe comes across the road to dump the water.
See that big distance right there.
So no solutions to that problem. Does this project interfere with that, with fixing this problem? Or does it make it worse?
I can't answer that. As far as I'm unfamiliar with the larger stormwater, the Glades stormwater management in the area versus this. The existing single family was there for quite some time. This is relatively sized. It's not significantly larger than the existing single family dwelling that was there.
Right.
You're correct that the single family dwelling was there. It was a kid residence. But it would become an island, especially in heavy storm situations, that we may encounter. I don't have a problem. I just want to make sure Ms. Flint knows the issues that can come and where you're putting the house and the issues you're probably gonna have to deal with if you don't build up some. I'm more worried about their future. I mean, I've talked with VDOT and Mr. Suter about fixing the ditches that run from the industrial plant all the way down below Maze's trucking to potential carry the water out of there better. But, you know, we haven't got very far with that. The other option would be is, you know, you change that whole holding pond situation to where it flows out of the back down to the river instead of flowing across the road, you know. So I think this is going to be an issue that the county is going to have to deal with one way or another. And I just want Ms. Flint to know that, you know, what you're getting yourself into right there.
Well, I think they had said something about putting more dirt there, just so it would run off, you know, to the side versus right where the house would be at. But it was nothing that we had set in stone. We was just waiting to see basically where this led us, and then.
Is there any role for our stormwater management here? Is this only a VDOT question, or is this, who fixes this water problem?
Actually, I don't think that, I think Supervisor McDaniel's bringing it up to them. I've been down there a lot, as he said. I've been down there with VDOT trying to figure out a way to correct that issue. I don't think putting the house there is going to contribute to any water coming in. I think that just what he said, Mr. McDaniel said, that he just wants them to eyes wide open.
Well, and I understand that, but we have a responsibility to our citizens, if they're living there, to fix issues that they might have, and this is a big issue.
Right, but I don't think I think we're muddying the water of why she's here. You know, no pun intended. She wants permission to put a house there, a modular house, and she's aware that it's swampy, and you know, it's not like we're saying, "Hey, we'll sell you this lot," and not telling her that it's not perfect. She knows that. So I think the runoff and the drainage is a whole separate issue, and we shouldn't
Well, I don't
tie
think
Ms. Flint up tonight.
I think when you're asking for a special exception permit, I think it is part of our process should be part of our process. How can we put a family on an island during part?
I've never known any ingress and egress. It's obviously not in the flood zone. You know, the as far as the special exception permit, if I'm not sure you're going to come up with a sound and reasonable condition associated with the use of the property as a manufactured home on 3 lots that is going to help or hurt the much larger issue of the glades. That the glades lane is the glades of Glasgow, and hence the water issue that we're chatting about. So we do have.
I just wanted to make sure, you know, Ms. Flint was aware of the issues that the property can present. I'm fine approving it. I'm glad that she brought this up because it gave us an opportunity to talk about other things that we're going to need to deal with down the road. But as Mr. Lyons said, 2 separate issues. I'm fine with approving what Ms. Flint wants. Just want to make sure she's aware of what goes on there before.
That was a motion. I'll second
Well,
it.
do we have a public hearing? We haven't opened the public hearing. So let's, if we're done with the presentation, we will do that.
Ms. Flint,
Yeah. Ms. Flynn, have you said everything that you would like to say? Okay. Mr. Sladen.
There's no one signed up to speak at this time.
And there's no one online.
All right. If there's nobody out there like to speak, I will close the public hearing.
The only thing I'll add on the stormwater management, it appears that the Flints have owned this property since 2017. And so they have some history down, and of course, long before this project, or this parcel, I should say, they've had a lot of history in the natural rich station area.
Just figured a mobile home would come off the ground versus sitting right there on the ground where the water is. You know, we still have.
So,
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Do I have?
I will still second that.
All right. Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
We will go back to consideration of requests from community housing partners.
Yes.
Mr. Suter?
Community Housing Partners is a 501c3 which owns housing units in multiple states, and as shown in the mapping in your package, the 70-unit Hunt Ridge apartment complex off of Cantor Lane in the Walker's.
Mr. Suter,
Yes.
may I interject just for a second here?
Oh, my fault. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself.
Yeah, I abstain from discussion or voting related to the designation of a revitalization area that is comprised of Hunt Ridge Apartments, and my disclosure statement required under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3115F is on file with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky was looking at me. I thought I was completely on the wrong item for a second, but thank you. Sorry about that. So the apartment complex has been owned by CHP since 2000. Year 2000. In January, CHP Vice President Andy Davenport contacted me to discuss capital upgrades and improvement plans they had for the development. Upgrade plans include improvements to the parking lot, windows, roofs, HVAC systems, appliances, cabinets, and some siding. And they intend to apply for tax credits managed by Virginia Housing to support the upgrades. The tax credit application process is competitive, and they'll receive a higher score if the application includes a resolution from the Board of Supervisors, which supports the project and designates the property as a revitalization area. Their application is due in March, to my understanding, and they have asked for the board's approval for the resolution contained in your agenda package, as well as a letter of support for the project. And Mr. Davenport is in attendance to answer any questions you might have tonight.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here in consideration of the resolution. If there are any questions, happy to answer them. Also happy to explain the tax credit process if that's of interest.
Just one question. If you don't receive the tax credits, are you going to move forward with?
We'll most likely have to apply in a future round because it's an
You won't
annual
do the
application.
improvements without. The
It is
tax
the
credit?
primary source of the funding for the improvements. One clarification, we actually purchased, the property was constructed around year 2000. We purchased it in 2020 with the intention of this kind of upgrade, capital upgrade. For your understanding, CHP owns about 6,000 units of affordable housing, 4,000 of those in the Commonwealth, about 1,000 in the Carolinas, and 1,000 in Maryland.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Davenport?
Not necessarily Mr. Davenport, but you know, to Dan's point, if they if they don't get revitalized due to non-grant funding, or is there any potential issue for us for the designation which we're supporting? Does that make sense?
I think it's like, is there a legal ramification for making this designation that forces the county to do something? And
that you can't do, that we can't do. We want affordable housing. I mean,
Right.
the whole thing's a good deal here, but if it works.
At the end of the day, this is really a statement of support that the county supports the need for us and says to Virginia Housing that this is a project that the county thinks is important. Really is the statement that's being said, and it's worth 10 points. Now, 1 out of 5 application in every round gets funded. Typically, if we're not successful, we rejigger the application so that we score additional points.
Frustratingly, we're painfully aware of how that works here in Rockbridge County, which is why I'm extra sensitive. At this point, we've not had good luck with that.
I will say in the last application round, CHP was successful in maximizing the total awards it could receive.
So did that my question make any sense, Ms. Huffman? Or
Uh,
Is it
The
not
question
something-
made sense, but I'm gonna ask Mr. Dryden to respond to you.
Oh, okay.
He worked on this project.
Well, Mr. Dryden.
The resolution in front of you actually is designating the area as a revitalization area.
Right.
And that's what's required in order to get in order for them to apply for the tax credits. So we're not actually designating any of the buildings or actually what they're doing. The area is a revitalization area, which then makes them able to apply for the tax credits and then.
But wouldn't require us to do
Yeah,
something.
The only thing we're doing is designating as a revitalization area that will stay in place. And so in the future, if they apply for it, if they don't get this time, they can apply again without any action required by the board of supervisors. And it has no effect on the property or any obligations to the county.
Okay. There we go. That's the statement I was looking for right there. That like the last sentence, Roger.
Is everybody comfortable? So is there a motion to adopt the proposed resolution and remit a letter of support?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Abstain.
Sorry, Mr. Day.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Consideration to join energy credits program for Natural Bridge Elementary School HVAC project. Mr. Suter.
Yes, the Rockbridge County Public School Division recently became aware of a federal program which provides tax credits, which are essentially rebates for infrastructure projects that utilize geothermal, and there's some other things, some solar, but this one's in particular geothermal. In January, the board provisionally adopted a CIP, which includes HVAC renovation for Natural Bridge Elementary School. The current HVAC system there is at the end of its life and has been gradually moving up over the years in the CIP, with plan replacement coming in the FY25 budget. While the CIP lists a cost of $2.9 million, the cost estimate for the project has recently been updated to $3.3 million. And in order to seek efficiencies, the school division joined with Train Energy to explore a new federal tax rebate program. Mr. Harrison and I reviewed the proposal, and everything points to the fact that there doesn't seem to be a downside to us. The program will likely provide at least 30% tax credit savings and potentially up to 40%, although the latter 10% is unlikely. A 30% savings would equate to nearly $1 million in this particular project. The rebating savings would go back into the county's general fund, and attached in your package is a brief summary of the program, which Ms. Cox with Train will go over shortly. In order to take advantage of the program in the upcoming fiscal year, a decision would need to be made by mid-March so that the school division could engage Train to submit application and begin planning for the implementation over the summer, this summer 2024. Thus, the Board of Supervisors would need to commit to this portion of the provisional CIP in advance of the standard simultaneous approval of the full CIP with budget adoption that's currently slated for late April. Additionally, the project would need to be paid for through reserves. Part of the deal in this rebate program is that projects that are financed would see a reduction of 15% of the available tax credit. Stating it differently, our rebate would only be $495,000, or just about half of what we would expect, and that would further be reduced by bond issuance cost. The proposal was presented to the board and school board executive committee on February 8th, and the committee recommended support. Mr. Harrison and I then present the concept to the finance committee on February 16th, and the finance committee expressed support and asked that this proposal be remitted to the full board. Dr. Thompson's unable to be with us tonight. Director of Facilities Randy Walters is here in person, and Train's Kathy Cox is here via Zoom to answer any questions that the board might have, and I will promote Kathy to a panelist, I believe. Yeah. Okay, there she is. Hello, Kathy. You're muted.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Good.
is,
Kathy, are you sharing your screen or are you waiting for questions?
Yes, I'm happy to share my screen.
Okay, would the board like to see that presentation?
Okay,
It's 2-page.
Yeah.
Yes.
We should.
please let me know what you can see at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I plan to be very brief this evening. I only have 3 slides. I'm Kathy Cox with Train Energy Services, and I am not a tax advisor or tax consultant. My purpose here this evening is to share with you the incentive embedded or part of the Inflation Reduction Act has the investment tax credit. And for the first time, we're seeing that K through 12 are non-tax paying, tax exempt organizations can now claim this credit directly. The investment tax credit is not new. It's been in existence for quite some time. What is new is what I just shared about K through tax exempt organizations can now file what's called direct pay or elective pay and receive a rebate basically back from the federal government. There's Train's position is to make our customers aware of what technology qualifies and that there is an incentive out there and there are requirements that have to be met. And Train wants to bring awareness to, in this case, the geothermal system that we're recommending be retrofitted at Natural Bridge Elementary School. We highly recommend working with a tax consultant. We will provide all the information about the system as is required for the investment tax credit. As I said earlier, this isn't something new. The investment tax credit used to be 6%. What the Inflation Reduction Act was boosted up to 30% as the base incentive. There's additional incentives that can be tied to it, but you have to meet certain provisions such as energy community, low income communities. As Mr. Suter said, there is a reduction if you use tax exempt bonds. And so making you aware of those requirements is really what we like to do this evening. And just to share that the system that we're recommending for Natural Bridge, you already have geothermal there. We recommend going back with geothermal, which is a qualifying technology for the incentive. The wells that are currently there will remain as they are, but all parts of the system will qualify for the incentive. And it is important when we do the project because you file once the project is complete, it has to be in service. Then you're able to pre-register and apply for the credit in your accounting tax year. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions.
The county CPAs, Mr. Harrison has already contacted county CPAs, which would be willing to assist with the filing.
Remind me again, Randy, where are the wells there?
In the middle of the baseball, right under the playing field there. Up behind the school.
So their answer was, just for the record, middle in the baseball field down behind the school.
So are they going to replace all the boilers in the school, everything at one time?
Yes, sir.
Because the well's pretty substantial cost, but they're using the old ones, and so.
Yes, sir. It'll be a complete upgrade.
And,
law system.
and this is a guaranteed 30% minimum rebate.
Yes.
And do you have to, I see something about prevailing wages. Is that something train make sure that that
Your
everyone
sy-
working on the project?
Yes, sir. Your system is under 284 tons. So that you do not have to meet the prevailing wages for this particular project. And that is a calculation that we have to provide. You actually will file taxes. They have a special form for you to file since you don't file taxes. And that's the information that they would ask of what size the system is.
Are all projects able to be under this federal program next year? If we had a similar project, would we be eligible or?
I think what makes us eligible for this particular project is the geothermal wells.
But if we had a solar project, for instance, any other energy projects?
I'll defer to Kathy, but I do believe it does cover solar.
It is. The program runs through 2032. Each year there's additional requirements that have to be met. So as you go through, but solar is included and geothermal is included for the entire time. And there's no limit to how many projects you can do and claim the ITC.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other?
I believe the Natural Bridge HVAC unit replacement was on the CIP in 2025, 2026, something like that. So it may be, pulling it ahead a year if we do it this summer. However, with the potential of saving $1 million on the cost, it's 3.3 right now. If you wait till next summer, it's probably gonna be 3.6 or 3.7. And there will be additional issues that you have to go under this inflation act. So that's why when we heard about it, that's why I was at the executive committee, asked that'd be brought to the finance committee for their due diligence and then be brought to the board. And as you know, if they decide to do this project the day after school gets out in May, they need to know sooner rather than later so they can mobilize and do certain things. And I don't like the fact that we're kind of rushing on this, but at the same time, when you can save $1 million of taxpayer money, I think it's a good opportunity for us.
Would you be willing to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, sir.
A motion to authorize the RCPS division to proceed with the planned project. So,
Yes, Madam Chair.
McDaniel, is there a second?
I'll say.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Consideration of rabies clinic for Glasgow.
Hopefully this one will be short.
Thank you.
I'll leave Bob.
Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
As you're aware, with recent requests, Code of Virginia requires that the counties in the Commonwealth ensure that a rabies clinic is held for its residents at least once every 2 years, and approval of such as by the local governing body is required. Glasgow Life Saving and First Aid Crew is requesting approval to host a rabies clinic on Saturday, April 20th of this year from 1 to 3 p.m. and we're requesting board approval.
Great. Are there any questions? My question is always first, how many? Could we get a report on last year's? Do we know how many dogs got shot, dogs and cats got rabies vaccinations?
I do not.
Right. Be a
But-
nice thing to include, I think, for the next year.
And yeah, some of them aren't every year, but yeah, we can do our best. We don't usually get a report back, but we can certainly try to request one. I do know we got one for South River, and that's the first one I'd ever seen.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions?
I'll
Make a
move.
motion to approve, Madam Chair.
All right. Is that a second? All right. Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Admission tax discussion.
Yes. As the board will recall, in the 2020 legislative session, counties were given increased taxing authority in certain areas, including the ability to implement admissions tax of up to 10%. So after repeal of an initial imposition of the 10% tax, the board readopted an ordinance denoting a stepped implementation of an admissions tax at a rate of 3% for the first year beginning January 1st in 2022. On January 1st, 2023, it moved to 6%, and as of effective January 1, 2024, and currently effect, the rate is 10% per charge. The ordinance also provides that the admission tax is capped at 3% per charge. I did provide a link to the current code section in your board package. I also have hard copies available if needed. Actually, I think I gave you a hard copy. And in your board docs, we also attached a copy of the tax revenues collected to date. So over the past 2 years, the Board Finance Committee has revisited the admissions tax on a couple of occasions, and no change to the ordinance has been recommended. However, there's been multiple discussions of moving into the 10% up, or that's went into effect January 1, and the Finance Committee has recommended the full board again discuss the tax. And should there be any desire to amend the code after that discussion, the board would need to set and advertise a public hearing to adopt by ordinance.
Just to be clear, the cap is in dollars, not percents, $3.
Yep, $3. Sorry.
Mhm.
Current cap.
All right, gentlemen. How are you feeling
I'll
about this?
start. First of all, I think we've got to be respectful of the businesses that are attracting these customers, because 10%, we're the only ones that would have 10%. The next closest is 5.5% for up and down this part of the state. And I think people are figuring out the intent of it was an admissions tax on a person entering. Well, the way it's written, it's an admission tax on a ticket. And now people are giving tickets that might be good for 4 people to come in, or a season pass worth a couple $100, but we got a cap of $3 on that. And so the honest people are following the intent, and the other people are finding ways around it. And I think 10% is too much. I'd like to see it stay at 6% and remove the cap. So those people that are putting as many people as they can on one ticket will pay the 6% of that ticket at least, rather than being limited to $3. Because when you get up with some of these tickets, you think, oh, that's not bad on one ticket. But if you've got a family of 4 or a family of 6, it can add up enough where, well, maybe we won't go there this year or go there this weekend. And so that's my thoughts on it.
I think it's important to note what Dr. Lyons said, as this is a relatively new imposition. We always inquired as to what other localities were doing, and at the time it was new, we didn't really know, and now we've seen what our surrounding jurisdictions are doing, and I don't know whether to say unfortunately or fortunately for us, we're not in as a situation as say in Augusta County or Botetourt that has many more resources than we do. So they haven't instituted, but this is, again, a transient revenue, and it takes the burden away from our citizens in most cases. And it's allows guests who come here to help us pay for all the things we have to pay for. So I think I'm the 6%, I think is we may have found a spot for us. It's more than some would like, I'm sure, but it's we do need to pay for the services that we provide.
And a lot of our citizens go to these places too around the county. So
some of them, yeah, but many of them are mostly from out of jurisdiction.
But it also, we use it as a way to offset our property taxes, correct? So by doing that, we still have it's 61 cents. So, do you want to raise our property taxes, or do we want to keep it at 10%? I personally think going to 6% across the board with no cap is just more democratic. Everybody is paying 6%. And if you're getting a season ticket someplace, then you're not paying 6%. You might not even be paying 1%. So that is, I think, why I like the 6% and perhaps without the cap.
right,
your
and we
point,
probably
yeah.
have to rewrite it a little bit. So it all, if a ticket had write it some way to make it where it's like per person coming in. Because I think that's what our intent was.
Mhm. Well, I don't think there's any benefit to change. If you'd have no cap, there's no benefit to having a season ticket. Or are you saying that a season ticket would no longer fall under
Well,
would that not fall under?
if I don't want to call out any business because I appreciate everything they do, but if I can bring a carload into a business for weekly for a number of weeks for X number of dollars, and you take 6% of that total thing, I don't, like you said, I don't think you're getting 6%.
So
Well, 6% of any of the total amount of
Right.
entrance.
Right.
You're getting 6% of whatever the business
Right.
charges, admission, and that's all we could ask for.
if I'm understanding correctly what you're asking, if I'm understanding correctly, the only thing you need to do is reduce it to 6% and lift the cap. That would
I'd
do-
be happy with that.
I
I
think
think you got to make it per person. You don't want a car of 10 people getting in for one ticket.
no, well, the
Won't
the
matter.
thing is, if you lift the cap, it's still.
I think you have to specify per person though, there versus per ticket, because a ticket could be for 10 people, and you're only paying 6% of what. I mean, I'm okay changing it. This is what we said when we first started, that we would look at it every year, review it, decide if it was appropriate or not, make changes as necessary. So I appreciate the finance committee doing their due diligence and bringing it back to us. The only issue with making any recommendations to change it right now is we still don't know what our budget looks like. We don't know what the schools piece looks like. We're missing the jail piece. We're missing other key components of our budget. So I think it's good for us to continue to look at this, and maybe the finance committee working with county administration and legal to perhaps develop changes, but don't bring it back to us until we know what our budget looks like and how it's going to impact our budget, would be my recommendation.
I think that's a good recommendation, and I would like to see an example of, Mr. Harrison, I don't know if you could do an estimate perhaps of we know what 6% what the cap is, because we have those. We know how much came in, but if we change to 6% without a cap, it might actually be better than 10% with a cap. It's conceivable that it is. correct? Am I wrong about that? Especially,
I think it's your, I think you're correct in your assumption. That just needs to be verified.
is there any way we could see a few number, or finance could?
Okay, I follow. I follow you.
And I hear Mr. McDaniel's concern, and in a perfect world, that's right. When does the tourism season ramp up? You know, to Dr. Lyons' point of, we appreciate the businesses. Is there some time that you know, in order to help the finance committee to study this, is there a good time? I mean, no time like the present, but what?
It depends on the business, but for example, I think the Virginia Safari Park is opening March 1st this year or thereabouts. Lime kiln, and then you got lime kiln season. I'm just going specifically on some of the ones that charge an admission. The Natural Bridge Speedway.
The drive-in opens.
The drive-in opens. It's typically a spring, summer, fall type of season for admissions.
So I was just thinking if there's some way we could, if we're going to change something, it'd be nice to for them to know what it is.
Well, at our next meeting, we could have proposed revisions, and if we don't like those revisions, we'll vote them down and we'll have what we have in place currently, correct?
We could bring you back something at the next meeting to
Do we have to
consider.
have a public hearing?
Correct.
At March 25th would be that then.
Okay.
We have to have the language that we obviously
By
want
March 11th. Any proposed revisions? Do that.
We could bring you back changes, proposed changes, basically a marked up copy, track changes copy of what a change would be. We just need to know what you want to see bringing back, or what combination of things you want to see. You know, if it was something very simple, if it was 10% back to 6%, that's pretty simple to do. And if it's changes to the, no cap, that's easy to do.
Mr. Harrison, can you have numbers, estimates on what that would do to our budget on Friday for the finance meeting? Is that too soon?
I'll do my best.
Well, and the finance committee is meeting Friday.
Correct.
So we can kind of look at some numbers. And if we feel that making a change is gonna equal what we're currently receiving, that's important to know. It's just a matter of distributing and making it, I think, more fair. And we can share that information with the county administrator to bring back to the board at the first meeting in March, saying these are the changes the finance committee is recommending, and hopefully it'll have no negative effect on the budget. But we can probably look at those numbers between now and the next meeting.
Would it be okay if you set a public hearing for March 11, but depending on the information, we may not make a decision. We could delay our decision to the March 25th meeting, but we would have the public hearing out of the way?
The only way to do that would be to figure out exactly what language you want to see in it tonight, so that we can advertise it tomorrow. Or I'm sorry, get it in the paper by tomorrow morning, to get it to the News Gazette. Which is why Ms. Huffman and I talked earlier today, and unless there was going to be a decision tonight, a very exacting decision, and then you all have had time to look at the markup, which could be difficult.
We don't want to do that as a parting gift to Ms. Huffman. That would, no, let's don't do that to her.
And we'd have to change the resolution, add another paragraph. Can't read it again.
So yes, we did consider that, and this seems to be the best option so that we can do exactly that. We can get in front of you what we think you want to see for the next meeting, and then you can either change it at that time, but whatever you end that meeting with is what you would authorize if you chose to move forward for public hearing on the 25th.
And if we did a public hearing on the 25th, could we set the rate back to the 1st of March, retroactive if it was approved? I don't know when they pay their things, but if monthly or.
They do, but they would have already collected the tax, and I'm thinking now, I'm speaking for Missy, but-
right.
Yeah, you're right.
I think we worked through that back, in one of the previous iterations.
Yeah, okay.
We best not,
So is that our route? I don't think we need a motion for that. That's just what we're
If you
doing.
want one, how about we move on? But
We've got one more thing to do.
Just for clarity, my understanding is that the finance committee will look at this on Friday. We'll look at some numbers from Mr. Harrison and determine what to bring back to the board as far as a marked up version.
Yep.
On March 11th for consideration. And if you choose to move forward, then you'd set public hearing on March 11th for March 25th.
Sounds like a plan. We'll move on to appointments. Tim Hickman, Local Board of Building Code Appeals. His term expires 3/13/2024.
move we reappoint.
All right. Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. And is that it, Mr. Suter? Have we completed our?
I have no further comments.
You have
Yeah,
completed your
any
regular-
comments?
I'm almost there, Bob.
Are we going to continue this meeting till Thursday?
No.
See, I didn't want
on
to
the-
jump the gun.
It's already, it's been published.
Oh, so we're continuing?
No,
Oh,
What are we doing?
you don't
We don't
have
have
to.
to. I see.
so I moved to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis. Mr.
Yes.
Mr.
Please,
McDaniel.
yes.
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you all. We got a lot done today.
That's your money's worth tonight, didn't you, Missy?